And good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Glendale City Council Budget Workshop session of April 1st, 2025. This meeting is called to order. I'm not going to call roll attendance because everybody is present and accounted for. Councilmember Melner is on the telephone with us right now. With that, Ms. Bauer, would you go ahead and introduce our first item?
Fiscal year 2025-26 Budget Workshop.
Well, good morning, Mayor and members of the council. As I was reflecting this morning, about 10 years ago this time, we were rolling out the first proposed budget from the city manager's office for the council's consideration. And the message that we had given staff back 10 years ago was, don't ask for supplementals because the city didn't have the money for supplementals. Fast forwarding 10 years today, we've had a similar message that we gave to our departments, which was to be very cautious on bringing forth additional supplementals this year. Now, this is not because we're in the same kind of financial situation that we were in 10 years ago. 10 years ago, we didn't have an option. We certainly have options because we have a very strong fund balance, which has been a really high priority of the council. But we're putting in a certain amount of caution because of the unknown of the next 12 to 24 months. And we feel it's a little bit, it's a good time to start backing off the gas pedal a little bit, get a better feel for the market. And so our staffs and our departments have done a wonderful job of really prioritizing. And so the supplementals you'll see that are over and above the cost increases, the things that we don't have control over, they've done a really fine job, and I'm really proud of the team. They've used very good caution. This goes in line with the fact that for every year since I know I've been here and since you've been on this council, is that we have continually exceeded our revenue, but we've also come in under on our expenditures. So we continue to be a very conservative approach to how we do things. We don't think that's a time to depart from that approach. And so with that, I'm going to have our Assistant City Manager Vicki Rios kick off the day's presentation, and we're looking forward to receiving input and comment from the council today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Phelps. I had some comments prepared, but Mr. Phelps already sort of covered the things I was going to talk about. What you'll see today as we go through the budget is that most of the increases are due to contractual obligations that the city already has. These are purchases of things like commodities and services that are going up in price, and so the departments submitted supplementals to raise their budget to keep up with that inflation. We remain very conservative on our budgeting, and so we can anticipate that we'll be on target for budget because we're always conservative in budgeting for revenues, and we're also very conservative. We budget for 100% of expenses, and typically we don't spend everything that we have. So I think that's the message that you'll see today. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Amy Lindsay. She's our budget administrator. She's going to start through the presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Rios. Good morning, Mayor and Council. The first slide is our budget calendar. We are on the third workshop, which is the fiscal year 26 operating budget department presentations on April 1st, which is today. The next workshop that we have scheduled is April 22nd, where we will be bringing back any changes to the operating budget that we discussed today, the draft CIP debt and contingency, so that you can see the fiscal year 26 budget kind of all together. We then have 3 voting meetings. The first is on May 13th, where the tentative budget will be adopted. At that point, the budget is set, and so any changes to the budget after that point, the budget cannot increase after it is tentatively adopted, but we can make changes within that dollar amount. The next meeting on June 10th is when the final budget will be adopted and the property tax levy, and then the voting meeting on the 24th is when the property tax will be adopted. Today's agenda, we will go through the budget process itself. We'll go through some budget highlights. We'll do a budget overview. There's some slides on fiscal year 25-26 changes to personnel. There's also 3 citywide supplementals that we'll go through. There was a council item of special interest that was brought up at the last workshop that we'll discuss. We will also go through what's in the binders that were provided to council about a week and a half ago. And then we'll go through each individual department's operating budget requests. So this first slide, we're going to go through some key budget terms that you'll hear throughout the presentation today. The baseline budget is the starting point when we develop the upcoming budget. The baseline budget is the approved fiscal year 2025 budget, less any one-time supplementals that were approved as part of the budget last fiscal year. Supplementals are any additions to the budget. A department can request supplementals as a one-time request or an ongoing addition. A one-time request is only for the upcoming year's budget and will not be added to future budget years. An example of a one-time request would be a computer or vehicle for a new FTE request. Those items are only purchased once at the time the employee is hired. Supplemental requests that are ongoing become a permanent addition to a department's operating budget. And an example of an ongoing budget supplemental would be increases to contracts, utilities, or the addition of personnel. FTEs is another term that you'll hear frequently today. FTE means full-time equivalent. It's a way to represent the total number of full-time work hours an employee has. An employee with a weight of 1 represents a full-time employee that would typically work 40 hours a week. An FTE with a weight of 0.5 would be considered a part-time employee who would work 20 hours a week. There are 3 main components of the operating budget. Those components are personnel, services and supplies, and internal charges. The personnel component consists of salary, benefits, retirement, and overtime. Changes in salaries are attributed to the recommended cost of living and merit pay increases for employees for the upcoming fiscal year. The HR department works with our benefit providers to determine what the increase for benefits will be for the upcoming fiscal year. Increases in retirement are based on the rates for the Arizona State Retirement System, or ASRS, as is often referred to, for non-represented employees, and Public Safety Personnel Retirement System, or PSPRS, for represented employees. If a department is requesting the addition of an FTE, this will also increase the personnel component of their operating budget. Any changes to the services and supplies component of the operating budget are done through supplemental requests. Most of the supplementals you will hear about today fall under this area of the budget. And internal charges are the amounts charged to the departments to cover the costs of shared internal services and resources that benefit all departments within the city. Some of the internal services included in this category are the cost of technology and the city's risk and workers' compensation insurance. Budget and Finance has internal service fund models that are updated annually based on several factors, which are then used to distribute the costs of these internal services equitably among the departments. The development of the city's operating budget process begins around September, October of every year and officially ends when the budget is adopted by council the following June. The council workshop on April 1st, 2025 is where we are today in the process. You will receive information regarding the fiscal year 26 operating budget requests, both on a citywide level as well as the department's specific requested additions to next year's budget. Today is also the council's opportunity to ask any questions regarding the department's requested additions, as well as proposing additions or changes to the city manager's recommended budget as it is presented today. This flow chart shows the process of developing the operating budget. Staff develops the 5-year financial forecasts, which were presented back to council back in January. Based on the availability of funding in those financial forecasts, department directors prepare and submit budget supplementals for their departments. Each supplemental includes a description and justification of the request, as well as the cost of the addition to the budget. Once the departments have submitted their budget requests, the Budget and Finance Department does some significant analysis. The department's current operating budget is reviewed to see if any one-time requests could potentially be absorbed through existing departmental savings. The Budget and Finance Department then uses financial models built from the revenue and expenditure assumptions in the 5-year financial forecasts to determine the impact of each request. The supplemental requests are then provided to the city manager's office for review. Supplementals that are determined by the city manager's office to both be affordable in the financial models and operationally critical to the departments are then added to the city manager's proposed budget, which brings us to where we are today. You will be receiving information regarding the city manager's proposed operating budget for fiscal year 26, including the recommended cost of living adjustments, or COLA, as we often refer to them, and merit increases for staff, contractually and regulatory increases to operating budgets, and the addition of key personnel. This meeting is also the City Council's opportunity to ask the departments any questions they have about proposed supplemental requests and discuss anything that you would like to have added to the fiscal year 26 operating budget. Items that receive council consensus will be taken back and added to the financial models by the Budget and Finance Department to determine their affordability. The next step in the process is to plug any recommended addition and changes received by City Council today into those financial models, like I mentioned before, to determine affordability and long-term impact to the 5-year financial forecasts. Because we present a balanced budget to the City Council, it's possible that the addition of something that is a City Council priority could result in the removal of a previously recommended supplemental. On April 22nd, we will have another budget workshop where all the changes that have been discussed during both the capital improvement plan workshop and the operating budget workshop will be included in the fiscal year 26 city manager recommended budget. Once we receive council consensus to move forward with all those recommended changes, we will then move into the formal adoption process of the budget. And with that, I'll turn the presentation over to Mr. Gibson.
Thank you, Ms. Lindsay. Here are some key budget highlights for our budget presentation today. As discussed in our 5-year forecast presentation, for the 10th year in a row, Council has elected to not increase property taxes in the city of Glendale. As mentioned previously by City Manager Phelps and Assistant City Manager Vicky, we have a very conservative budgeting approach. The majority of the increases you will see today are due to regulatory or contractual obligations. We are recommending 13.25 new FTEs that were submitted during this budget process. These new FTEs are to support city operations. This chart is to show how our conservative budget approach compares to the amount of revenue we have received versus what we have budgeted. This is a 5-year chart of our city sales tax budget versus actual comparison. City sales tax is our most important revenue source. The blue bar represents our budgeted tax revenue, and the green represents the sales tax revenue we have actually received. As you can see, for the past 5 years, the tax revenue we received surpassed our budgeted estimates. This represents our conservative revenue budget forecasting. Additionally, this is our general fund expenditures budget versus actual, and you will see the same conservative nature. The yellow represents the adopted budget, or the orange, and the red represents the actual expenditures. As you can see, our budget expenditures are always higher than our actual expenditures. And this again represents the conservative nature in how we budget. So for fiscal year 25-26, some of the budget highlights are public safety increases in accordance with the current memorandums of understanding. There's a focus on employee recruitment and retention. So we are recommending increases in employee pay, a 3.5% cost of living adjustment, or COLA, for non-represented employees, and up to 2.0% merit increase for unrepresented employees. Additional budget highlights come from page 37 of your binder. The total operating budget increase for all funds from the baseline, which, if you remember, as we defined earlier, the baseline is fiscal year 25's adopted budget less any one-time supplementals, is $65 million, or 10%. Last year, the total operating budget increase for all funds from the baseline, which was fiscal 24's adopted budget less one-time supplementals, was $10 million, or $101 million, for our total of 17.8%. So as you can see, that's a decrease from the prior year. The general fund operating budget increase from the baseline as fiscal year 25 adopted budget less one-time supplementals is $19.8 million, or 6.2%. Last year, the general fund operating budget increase from the baseline to proposed budget was $42 million, or 15%. And with that, I'll turn it over the remainder of the presentation to Mr. Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. Good morning, Mayor and Council. This slide, this pie chart represents the entire fiscal year 2026 operating budget by fund. The total proposed operating budget for fiscal year 2026 is $709 million. General fund accounts for 48% of the operating budget at $337 million, followed by the enterprise funds at 21% of the total operating budget at $152 million. Next is our internal service funds at $122 million, or 17% of the operating budget. Special revenue funds at 12%, or $86 million. And then last is vehicle replacement fund at $12 million, or 2%. And then this pie chart represents the general fund portion of the operating budget by function. The total general fund operating budget is $337 million. And as you can see, public safety, which is fire and police, account for 65% of the general operating budget at $216 million, followed by other departments at $58 million. Other departments are departments like budget and finance, city court, HR, city attorney's office, and other similar departments. Then we have parks and recs at $22 million, then public works at 21, followed by community services at 11, and non-departmental at $9 million. This slide shows all the FTEs requested for fiscal year 2026. The total cost of the 13.25 positions is $1.6 million ongoing. And you'll notice some of the FTEs have one-time charges. Those amounts are things like computer equipment or vehicles. And we'll go into more detail about the FTE requests as we go through each of the department's requests. And then this slide shows that those 13.25 FTEs we discussed on the previous slide, broken up by fund. Here are the 3 citywide supplementals that are being requested. When the DCRP project began and staff was moved to alternate facilities around the city, a car allowance was added to the budget for department directors and key staff members. To assist with the additional travel between facilities, a one-time supplemental for $78,000 is being recommended for fiscal year 26 and will be discontinued when staff moves into City Hall and the project is complete. Next is the Fleet Division tracks and monitors the shop charges for the city's vehicles. Based on their projections, an increase of $2.2 million for fiscal year 26 has been applied to cover the increasing cost of parts and labor for vehicle repairs and maintenance. And next is a $1.5 million increase is being recommended for the employee health savings account for the high deductible health plan. And I'll explain more of this request in the next 2 slides.
Mayor, can we go back to slide 11 for a minute, please? I just want to make sure that we are now in the 2nd year of an MOU with police and fire. Is that right? So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mayor, members of the council, that's correct.
Okay, so it was a 10% COLA or pre-negotiated increase last budget cycle and another 10% this budget cycle, and now we're negotiating a new, or we should be starting on a new MOU?
Mayor, members of the council, will start in the fall.
Okay, but this is the last budget cycle for the existing MOU.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
All right, thank you.
Okay. So as I mentioned with the health savings account supplemental, the proposed changes to employee health savings account. The city will incentivize employees to migrate from the high-priced EPO and PPO plans to the lower-priced high-deductible plan. Doing so may help lower overall claims and expenses and reduce long-term liabilities. Increasing the health savings account contributions will help with recruitment and employee retention. The high-deductible health plan enrollees benefit from reduced monthly premium as compared to the higher-priced EPO and PPO plans. Also, health savings account funds are portable and can be used for medical expenses after leaving Glendale employment. The request is to double the city's health savings account contributions from $1,000 to $2,000. This increase will help reduce the employees' upfront medical expenses. And also this increase to the health savings account is expected to cost the city $1.5 million in additional costs. Do we have any questions regarding this supplemental?
Mayor, I do have one. With regard to the car allowances for directors, what constitutes key staff? Who are key staff?
Mayor, members of the council, the car allowance applies to all of the directors, and then I believe we have Mr. Garcia, the city's architect, and one other person, who was it? And who in development? And one of the chief inspectors in development services. So those are the ones that are associated with City Hall. And once the City Hall is completed, they'll go away.
Okay, thank you. Mayor, if I could though, so I mean, going through the change documents, I saw car allowances for, like, for example, audit. Under the audit page, there's a car allowance for there.
Mayor, members of the council, that's correct, because it's put in every year as a one-time. Everyone who's getting it, we have to put it back in as a supplemental. And in the case of the auditor, he's displaced from his normal workplace. And so he was, and he's somewhat the equivalent of a director, and so he's receiving that car allowance.
What do you mean by display? I mean, it's basically their normal workspace. Their workspace is where it is right now, though, right? I mean, I don't even know where the auditor is. Where is the auditor working?
Mayor, members of the council, the auditor is working out of the Foothills Library at this time. And so then when he needs to go anywhere, to one of the departments, to our offices, out at the Renaissance, he holds a lot of his meetings at the airport. He's using his own vehicle to do that. That's why we felt the car allowance was appropriate.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Mayor, members of the council, I'm sorry. Before we leave this slide, I did want to say that this proposal to increase the HSA contribution, while it does show a cost of $1.5 million, it is actually expected in the long run to reduce the city's costs. As we incentivize people to go to that high deductible plan, our cost for actual medical expenses tends to go down for those people that have this type of plan. So in the short run, it will be an increase until we know what the impact of it is, and we see how many people do switch and what that savings is. We have to budget for the entire 1.5 million, but over time, it is actually expected to decrease our benefits.
Thank you, Vicky. At the March 25th council workshop, Councilmember Guzman requested a $100,000 placeholder in the fiscal year 2026 budget for citywide celebrations to honor the country's 250th birthday. Per the CIO-SI, the placeholder is contingent upon staff recommendations for events, and staff will provide events ideas and cost estimates. Councilmember Malnar all supported this request.
Yeah, hold on. I'd like to speak on this. I don't believe that 100,000 is enough if we do this correctly. This money, we wouldn't be able to even start utilizing it until our next budget cycle. I'm sorry, next fiscal year, after July or during July. But I think that if we do this right, and work with their schools, work with their citizens, I think we need to do a better job than just 100,000. That doesn't go very far. I'd like to increase that myself, an additional 100,000, just because I think that would be the right thing to do. I think overall we should have $300,000 or $400,000 in the budget. If we don't use it, then it goes back. But at least if it's there the following year, at least we have those options. That we have to make that decision today for next year, basically. So I'd like myself to see that increased an additional 100,000 for myself. And then, did you want to talk on this?
Mayor?
Go ahead, Mr. Melner.
Mayor? Yes, and I agree with that. I really do believe we need, if we're going to do a good quality job on this celebration, I think we need to spend more than $100,000 on it. That doesn't get us a whole lot. Again, looking at the budget presentation, it says that staff will make recommendations, but I would also like to have some input from council on some ideas to spend that money. So I would support that 100,000 and perhaps even go an additional 200,000 to really make this a memorable experience for the citizens of Glendale.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the things Councilmember Guzman and I talked last week about was doing more and more things to put Glendale on the map nationally. I mean, we're already on the map locally, but we want to do more things to put Glendale on the map in a national spotlight. For good reasons, for very good reasons. I believe this is one reason. I believe another reason her and I had spoke about was like doing things like an event where we're breaking a world record, and it's that sounds silly, but with our idea and our plan, it would be feasible and easily feasible, and those kinds of things I think help put Glendale on the map nationally with national attention. I do believe that a 250 birthday is something that we can't take lightly. We should do something robust. Having a lot of it's a milestone that we have to recognize and give it the credit and the respect that it deserves. And I'm not necessarily sure if only 100,000 from request from Councilmember Guzman is enough. I would also like to. I hate to throw a monkey wrench in everything, Levi. I apologize for that, but I agree also that maybe timing of it is of the essence, and especially it's just right coming up really soon. So if it's possible, I would also like to see if I could request 100,000 as well for that, so that we can really do something robust throughout the year. But also getting students involved, kids involved, teachers, our seniors. It's a big deal, and I really believe we should do something really nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. How would, so first of all, are you requesting 300,000 or you're not requesting an additional 100,000? Okay, I wanted to make sure I understood that. Because I think you,
No,
were.
hold it. What?
I'm only requesting an additional 100,000.
Okay.
That's what I'm
so
doing.
Basically seconding what the mayor had said. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was clear. Thank you. I just wanted, so Nick, where would this go into under special, an additional 200,000 under special events? Or where would the money go in the budget? I understand we're talking about it, and then what my question is because of is there any additional money left in the special events fund from the past fiscal year where we could basically spend now and then pay it, and then pay later, basically, because this basically wouldn't, as the mayor said, become available until July 1st, even though we need to be probably planning and paying for things ahead of that.
Mayor, members of the council, so we haven't done any analysis to determine what special events has available this year. We can do that. My guess is they do have something available. So we can get back to you on that part of your request. And then, we could spend, if we have it available, yes, we could spend some this year. And then what I'm hearing is you'd like this to be $200,000 for next year. And we can put it in the special events budget. We've typically put these kinds of things also in the non-departmental budget, but if you prefer, it can go in special events. So they're kind of running it from there.
Okay. I was just thinking special events because probably they may have some money still available under special events that we could use now and then just basically pay it back. So, and then, I mean, I agree with that. I think this is a really great idea. I think, part of what we should, and I'm sure this is going to be coming back to us in some form or fashion, but partnering at least on the actual date of the 4th with Westgate, because they already have kind of a big event. I mean, we should be doing other things besides that, but I think we should partner with them for that part of it because they spend a lot of money on a fireworks show. So some component of what we're doing, I think I'd like to see us do something collaboratively with Westgate. And I'm sure Ms. Guzman wants to speak on that too.
Yes, Mayor. I did plan on talking with them. I know they'd be on board. They do that big July 4th event, so yeah, that'd be a great idea.
All right. Well, and so the July 4th event at Westgate, I actually had to twist Mr. Tietzel's arm, I don't know, 12 years ago to get him to do that. And after they had the first one, after that, they couldn't not do it. It was so popular. To me, this isn't so much having the money set aside to start spending immediately. It's, I think the last probably 3 quarters up until 2026, July 4. I think that's where we need to get more engaged in it. And one of the thoughts that I had, and if we do this right, I think every council member here, if they work it correctly, I think it could be incredibly successful. But we had an essay for, say, 5th graders, and it's 500 words. Tell us why you love the United States, or what do you think makes America great, or something like that, where we could get every mid-school kid involved in this. And the prize being that we will pay for that child and their parents to go to Washington, D.C. Let them actually experience Washington, D.C. I know that we have a good enough relationship with a lot of our legislators that I don't think it'd be that difficult to set up a time where these students could actually go back and meet their congressman. I really believe we could make that happen. So I don't think personally that 200,000 is enough. I don't know why we don't make it 250,000 for 250 years of the America's birthday. Again, if we don't spend it, we don't spend it. But at least a placeholder so we have it available when we do need it. I wouldn't expect that we would probably start even spending any of this money until after we get special events. And I think we need to have a subcommittee that helps kind of put some ideas together on the best way to make this available for every citizen in Glendale, and make other cities start wanting to duplicate what we're doing even more so. So
Mayor?
that was my thought.
Mayor,
Go ahead, sir.
members of council. So I think the process that we would likely do, I think economic development is the best placeholder to have somebody that, that's part of their responsibility. What we would do is, based on today's conversation, I would recommend that we come back with a workshop item here in this current budget year, start getting ideas from the council in terms of how the types of things you're wanting to do. We're only 90 days to the end of this budget year, so the ability to be able to start expending money really quickly is probably, you could only do a little bit likely, but I think the planning can begin now. So that would be my recommendation, is we come back, schedule a workshop with the council. You could be prepared to bring some of the different ideas like the one you just mentioned, Mayor, and then we'll assign that within our economic development team and start moving forward. Remember that we have a contingency that we typically don't use here within the budget. So if we were to go past the 200,000, we would just be a matter of using some of our budget contingency, which we would talk to the council about. But that would be my recommendation, is go to the 200,000 and start the planning process as before the end of this fiscal year.
Okay, and just to be clear for everyone, I don't want I don't want to put it off this budget cycle for next year to come up with it where we're going to be spending it the year later. We have to have money available to us. I'm thinking probably September, October, November, in that area. So as long as we're saying the same thing. Okay, perfect. Question, Mr. Turner.
Thank you, Mayor. As usual, the mayor and I are on the same page here. I was thinking 250,000 as well. I think it makes and again, if we don't spend it, we don't spend it, but it really does give us a hook and for what we're intending to do, and something that our public relations department can springboard off of. And again, if we don't use it, we don't use it. But I would support that number. I'd support 200 as well, but 250 has a nice Liberty Bell ring to it.
Mayor?
Mayor, this is Councilmember Malner. I agree with the 250.
All right, thank you.
One of the ideas, and I just want to speak my idea out loudly. I remember as a kid going to GCC and seeing the fireworks show there. I know Councilmember Conchas and we received a lot of complaints about all the fireworks that were happening in our districts. I think if we had did something where like at Rose Lane Park, where we could have something of a fireworks display there. Also possibly at Glendale Community College and the football stadium like they used to have, where maybe if we aggressively promote it, that'll help suppress all the stuff that's happening illegally happening in the neighborhoods, and maybe that would be more of a community engagement type of thing again that we used to have I remember growing up. Now granted, those are not in my districts. I apologize for just pointing it off to you, but I remember it had happening at GCC, and it would be great to have it at Rose Lane Park, because they are large parks and they have a big open areas where we could do something safely there. So I just want to, whoever is going to be planning that, just write that down, please. An idea.
Any other comments? None? All right, so I would ask, is there a consensus on 250 over 200,000?
Yes.
Okay, all right. All right, very good.
Mayor, if I could?
Go ahead.
Thank you. I think Councilmember Guzman's done us a favor here, not just with her idea, but in the bringing it forward. We don't really seem to have a place in the budget process for council members to contribute their ideas early enough in the process to get the kind of background research that we might be interested to, and make it easier for us to make a solid decision. I would like the budget process going forward to have a place relatively early in it designated for council member input, just like the directors bring forward their ideas to the budget staff and the city manager. I think we should have a place where we do that. It could either be through one-on-ones, or it could be in a workshop meeting, but it's something that ought to be calendarized, just like choosing the vice mayor is, or council committees or assignments are, or something like that. I don't know if it's in the same workshop that we do the first fiscal report, or if it's one right after that, but somewhere in the process. I think it'd be great if all of us could bring forward what we'd like to see that we notice might be good to have in the upcoming budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So at this time, I'd like to just briefly review the binder that was delivered about a week ago. The first page was an overview of the binder contents. So the first tab is labeled FTE schedule. So page number 1 is a full-time employee equivalents request by department. And then we go to page 3, which is the position requests and positions movement within the city. The next tab is approved supplementals. The first one, which is page 19, shows a summary of the citywide supplementals applied to the city departments. Page 20 is supplementals recommended for approval by fund. And then page 27 is supplementals recommended for approval by each department. And then we go to the next tab, not approved supplementals, on page 35. And these are supplementals not recommended for approval. The next tab, summary by department, shows a summary of budget versus actuals by department, including dollar and percentage changes compared to the baseline budget. The next tab is a summary by fund. It's the same information as the previous tab, just separated by the different funds. And then from there, you have all the different departments. They get their own specific tab. First one's a change report showing the total FY26 budget, highlighting the overall increase or decrease from the prior year, along with any breakdowns that they submitted. Then it shows those departments, the supplementals recommended for approval for that department, followed by the not recommended, if they had any that were not recommended. And then it goes to the summary pages, like the previous tabs, but specific to those individual departments. And then next we'll move on to the main attraction of today's workshop. We'll go over the department's request. So the departments are here to answer any questions you may have about their supplemental request. If you have any questions, feel free to stop me, and we can bring someone up from the department to respond to your questions. First department is the audit department. The audit department has an annual budget of $634,000 and has one full-time employee. The audit department utilizes both internal and external audit services to identify risk, strengthen controls, identify risk, improve processes, and verify compliance to ensure the city is operating in the most efficient and transparent way possible. The audit department did not submit any supplemental requests for this fiscal year.
Mayor?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question. So it's not under audit, it's under budget and finance, a supplemental for increased audit services of $100,000. I was curious, first of all, why it's not under audit, and then is that basically to outsource additional audits annually? Is that what that's for?
Mayor, Councilmember, or Vice Mayor Tomolchoff, the request under budget and finance is to cover the cost of our annual financial audit, which is handled by an outside auditor, as well as the cost of our federally mandated single audit. Those costs have increased for a couple of reasons. One, as we said, contractually, the auditors are beginning to charge more. And two, with all the COVID money that flowed through the city, we were required to audit additional federal programs. And so that came with an increased cost to the city.
Okay, thank you.
So that's a good segue into the next department, budget and finance. The budget and finance department has an annual budget of $13.5 million, and we have 76.5 FTEs. The budget and finance department provides financial management services, including finance administration, procurement, budget and research, tax and licensing, accounting services, and customer service and billing. And then we've got treasury and investments and grants management as well. Budget and Finance is requesting 2 supplementals this year. The first is $100,000 that Levi mentioned for the increase in audit services, and the second is $17,500 for the increase for the contract with the debt book, which is software that the accounting division utilizes to meet required accounting standards.
Mayor, I have a question on budget and finance. Under supplementals, not recommended, but budget and finance requested a vendor validation software. And I was curious what that is and why, does it protect money from being sent to the wrong people? What does it do? And why was the request not approved?
Mayor, Council, Vice Mayor Tomolchoff, the reason why, so yes, that software is a software that can be utilized to validate the vendors, so to make sure that they are who they say they are. It also includes a service where every payment that you send out is validated to make sure that it's going to the actual vendor. As you know, vendor fraud has increased where fraudsters will try and, change banking information. This software helps us mitigate that by doing actual validations on every payment. It's not a one-time event. The reason why we recommended it to be a no for a budget supplemental is the vendor cooperates with Chase Financial Services or Chase Bank, and they have a method by which if we maintain a certain amount on deposit, that deposit will pay for the software. And so we're able to earn earnings credits that will pay for the software based on the money we keep in the bank. So there's no need for us to expend an additional supplemental when we can use the earnings credits from the amount that we already maintain at a bank.
So were we already enrolled in this, or are we going to enroll in this, or?
Mayor, Vice Mayor Tomolchoff, we will be implementing this software over the next few months.
Okay, thank you. So
And I should mention, you will see a contract coming forth probably in the next couple months to get us into that implementation.
Okay, so this would work also, for example, before if we were to, for example, wire a large amount of money somewhere, this would also make sure, do all the front end checking to make sure that and validate the endpoint of that wire to make sure that we're wiring the money to the right person.
Correct. Any payment that we made would go through that validation process. The company that provides the software also includes a $2 million insurance policy on any payment. So should they recommend that you wire this money or send a payment out, and it was to a fraudulent individual, they will reimburse the city up to $2 million.
Very good. Okay, I'm glad to hear that because I saw that and was wondering why it wasn't approved. Thank you.
Next, we have the city attorney's office. The city attorney's office has an annual budget of $6.1 million, and they have 32 FTEs. They provide expert legal services to Glendale, advising city officials and departments, preparing legal documents, and prosecuting misdemeanor violations, all while ensuring justice and professional standards are upheld. The city attorney's office is requesting 2 supplementals this fiscal year. The first is for $150,599 for a new assistant city prosecutor, and the second is for $50,000 to cover outside legal counsel fees. The outside counsel legal fee increase is needed to help comply with the federal regulations and remain up to date on the law related to telecommunications. Next, we have the city clerk's office. The city clerk's office has an annual budget of $1.5 million, and they have 7 full-time employees. The city clerk's office ensures transparency and accessibility by maintaining public records, managing city council agendas, overseeing municipal elections, and coordinating legal compliance for notices and ordinances. There is 1 supplemental request, and this request is to cover the potential special bond election anticipated in November of 25 with an estimated cost of $250,000.
Mayor, I have a question.
Go ahead.
I have a question.
Barely heard you.
Okay, let me pull it forward. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't, as we all know, there's been paperwork put in for a recall of one of the council members. If that goes through, is there not money in the budget for that? Because that's going to be another $250,000.
Mayor, Councilmember Guzman, if that were to go through, we would likely cover that out of the contingency, which we've already budgeted for.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Next is city court. The city court has an annual budget of almost $8 million, and they have 46.5 FTEs. The city court ensures fair justice by adjudicating misdemeanors, code violations, and traffic offenses, issuing protective orders, and collaborating to reduce recidivism and promote community safety. The Glendale City Court serves as a host for the West Valley Regional Veterans Court, providing for adjudication of cases and coordination of services for veterans from 6 participating West Valley municipalities, and they did not request any supplementals for this upcoming fiscal year. The city manager's office has an annual budget of $6.6 million, and it has 31 FTEs. City manager's office provides leadership to implement city council policies, ensures efficient service delivery, and promote community health and safety through code compliance. The city manager's office is requesting 1 supplemental this year. This supplemental is for the code compliance division for $100,000, and this is for a contractual increase for the Arizona Humane Society.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
this is Councilmember Conchas. In terms of our code compliance, has there been any request for additional FTEs for our code compliance division?
Mayor, members of the council, will defer that question to Rick St. John.
Good morning, Mayor. Councilmember Conchas, yes, we did have 1 request for a senior inspector that we talked about to help out with some inspections around new businesses and business licensing, but we decided not to move that forward at this time. We're going to take on the workload with the current staff that we have and then come back next year if we find that there's a gap.
Mayor and Council, the reason I bring this up is because I hear about code compliance from my residents, and I would like either in this fiscal year or the next fiscal year to talk about how we can increase our staff in code compliance in order to build up their capacity. Thank you, Mr. St. John.
Mayor?
Go ahead, Mr. Milner.
Yeah, just had a question regarding the Animal Defense League. We've always had a budget in code compliance to pay for the feral cat program. And I don't see that itemized here. I just want to make sure that it is in the budget.
Mayor, Councilmember Malnar, it is in the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, if I may ask, what's the amount of that?
Of the feral, sorry, Mayor, Councilmember Turner, of the feral cat program,
Yes, sir.
that's $25,000.
Is that proving sufficient?
I defer that to Mr. St. John.
Mayor, Councilmember Turner, yes, I believe so.
Thank you.
Mayor, Mr. St. John, with regard to code compliance, I know that you were bringing on, and I think we had discussed this, maybe it's in the queue, you're not going to be using Glendale 1 anymore for code complaints, and that there was supposed to be a software upgrade or implementation that was going to streamline the code complaint process and the code follow-up process. So, and I believe that the conversation was prior to a few of these people being on the council. So is that in the queue to be coming to a workshop? And that is one way I know that we had talked about that it should improve the workflow in the code department.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, yes, we are planning to come to council sometime in the fall once business licensing and development services teams are in Build Glendale is what it's called. So code is the only division that's in Build Glendale right now. So a lot of the efficiencies won't exist until all the teams are using Build Glendale and all the information is available to everybody in the system. So come this fall, probably October, November, we'll be bringing a presentation to council on what those efficiencies look like.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. St. John. The Communications Department has an annual budget of $2.6 million and has 12.5 FTEs. The Communications Department shares Glendale's key messages through strategic initiative, innovative communication across platforms, fostering community connections and supporting transparency via media, events, and digital outreach. And the Communications Department did not submit any supplementals for the fiscal year 25 proposed budget. The Community Services Department has an annual budget of $57.6 million, and they have 110.5 full-time employees. The Community Services Department strengthens Glendale by delivering impactful programs focused on education, housing, crisis support, and community engagement, while also providing access to diverse resources and programs through its 4 public libraries to foster learning and community connection. The Community Service Department has several supplementals requests for fiscal year 26. First is $40,000 for the Glendale Works participation wages to address minimum wage increases. Field Operations is also requesting a similar supplemental in the Landfill Enterprise Fund. Libraries is requesting $30,000 for the continued support of the library mobile app. And the next is $125,000 for year 3 of the residential landscape improvement program. And the next 4 requests are for the HUD grants carryover. These one-time requests are to carry over unspent and committed federal grant funds provided to the city. And then you'll see the negative entry for community services. Community assistance is based on the anticipated voucher amounts they're expected to receive in the upcoming fiscal year.
Mayor, I have a question. On page 95 of the book for community services, under professional services, it shows a negative, or a decrease from the 2026 requested baseline of $360,201. What professional services were decreased or streamlined for that? It's on page 95.
So as we dive into the individual division, Mayor and Council, as we dive into these specific divisions, you'll notice there's a lot of negatives, pluses and minuses. And so what happens during the budget process, the departments take time to align their budget where expenditures take place. And so a lot of that happens within the division. So let's say maintenance and repair went up for this particular division for library. And they also move money around between the different divisions to right-size their budget to meet where their expenditures are aligning.
Okay. Okay. I had one other thing there. On page 97, under community housing, maintenance and repair was quite an increase. Can you explain what that is? Does this have anything to do with them moving the program in-house, the rehabilitation program?
It could be. I'm trying to look. Forgive me.
Mayor, members of the council, I think we may need to have Kimberly Hall come and answer that question.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Councilmember Guzman, would you please ask that question one more time?
On page 97 of the book, it shows under community housing, maintenance and repair, an increase, actually it shows here 164.54% increase. And I'm just wondering what that's for. What is the increase for? Does it have to do with you guys bringing in-house the rehabilitation program?
And if Matt has, I think he was right behind me. I want to make sure I answer this question appropriately.
I think he's coming. He's coming up.
Okay, great.
Morning, Council. Mayor, Councilmember Guzman, those are unrelated. Community housing is their public housing authority, not the revitalization division, which
Okay.
oversees the emergency home repair.
Okay,
Those are different.
okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Mayor, I do have a question also on page 97, under community housing, under professional services, there's a substantial decrease in the budget. Is that, can you explain that? Decrease of about $1.6 million under professional services.
Mayor and council, on this slide, you'll see, I haven't gotten there yet, but there's a supplemental of under 6130, which is the fund you're looking at on page 97. The total, the one-time request of the 3.3 million. If you take a look, there was some movement and additions, subtractions on that division. The total under professional or services supplies is the amount of that supplemental.
I'm sorry, can you say that again? I did not understand that.
Yeah, so there have a supplemental request. It's the third line on the slide on the screen.
What page is that?
It's on the
On the PowerPoint.
change
page
document.
44.
44.
You can see that supplementals in the services supplies.
Okay.
And that's where that movement comes. So they added the 3.3 and they reduced some lines and then increased, for example, community services. And so that supplemental answers that movement and then that increase to that fund.
Okay, so it's basically just been moved to another line essentially in the budget.
Yeah, so what I have listed right here, Mayor and Council, is this a one-time increase to the housing operating budget as a result of the HUD authorized allocations for fiscal year 26 for both the housing choice voucher and the emergency housing voucher programs.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. Thank you.
Mayor, Mayor and Council, and Mrs. Hall, Miss Hall, Director Hall. So I had talked to Pastor Perry at St. John's Lutheran Church, and they do a heat respite center, and there have been a lack of social workers there from other programs that they've received, either federal or state. And so my request is that we fund a contract or a position to assist our unsheltered neighbors assessing services over at St. John's Lutheran Church. I know that's something that has not been done before, and it would take a lot of planning and time. But I'd like to put that request in for Pastor Perry. If not this budget cycle, then the next budget cycle. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Just to continue with community services, the rest of the supplementals on this are carryover requests of unspent and committed grant funds provided to the city. Development Services Department has an annual budget of $9.3 million and has 53 FTEs. The Development Service Department ensures safe building practices, manages city planning and zoning, supports historic preservation, and provides GIS and mapping services, fostering organized growth while maintaining community standards for the city.
Excuse me, Mayor. I had two more questions under community services. If we can go back. On page 100, what is internal premiums? It shows a decrease, quite a large decrease.
Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Guzman, the internal service charges are the charges that are charged to the departments to cover the costs of technology or risk and workers' compensation, things like that are then equally distributed amongst the departments. We can look into what that decrease is. We get device counts from the IT department every year that show the number of devices in each of the departments. It's possible that, when they do their annual audit, there could be a device count that went down. The other thing that we've noticed when things typically go down in internal services, when we do the risk management allocation, part of that allocation is based on a 5-year claim history. And once insurance claims are paid out and fall off of that 5-year history, those premiums go down for that particular department.
Oh, okay.
So we can look into what that specific amount is, but that's most likely what it's attributed to.
Okay, all right, thank you. And one more on page 101 under community service opioid settlement, $750,000. What is that?
Mayor, council will let Ms. Hall answer that question.
Mayor and council, so we're requesting $750,000. We're working on a strategy as we speak as far as how to spend those dollars effectively in the community. And most recently, we had an RFP that allowed multiple agencies throughout the valley to potentially qualify to utilize some of those funds to support people who are struggling with opioid addiction.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mayor, council, just for informational purposes, the terrible pronunciation, the opioid settlement money was money that the city has received based on the number of cases that have proceeded against large pharmaceutical companies. Those were generally negotiated with the Attorney General's office or somebody else, and that's the money we've received based on those settlements.
Okay, that's what I figured. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I want to clarify with the attorney, that was part of a class action suit that we agreed to, was it not?
Mayor and council, the city was intending to file the lawsuit. There was also the state attorney general became involved in various class actions. We opted into the attorney general settlement, and so we get a portion of the proceeds that would go to the state it's generally based on population.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor? Thank you, Mayor. I wasn't aware that we put out RFPs for other communities to use the opioid settlement funds for programs outside of what we're doing in community services and public safety. This has a big impact also on our public safety personnel, overdose situations. So what is that? I mean, I guess we maybe can talk about that another time, but I would like to have a better understanding of what that process looks like, because there's a huge cost to our public safety personnel to respond to these type of calls as well. So I'm happy to help the community, but I don't want to short our public safety personnel on their ability to respond to these as well. So, perhaps we can bring that back as a separate conversation. But I just recently became aware that there were other community partners able to basically essentially petition us for some of this money. So I think the council should have an understanding of how that works and how those decisions are being made. Thank you.
Mayor. Mayor and Council, my question is about highlighting the residential landscape improvement pilot program. In my little notes, I put good in a check mark. It's a one-time. Why was that one time and not ongoing?
Mayor, members of the Councilmember Conchas, when the program started 3 years ago, we put it in as a one-time request, you know, kind of as a way to make sure that it was successful, because it was a pilot program 3 years ago. We have noticed that it has been successful. Again, when this program was put in place, part of the program was to kind of determine how much money community services was going to need on an annual basis to continue the program. So they have continued to put that supplemental in as a one-time dollar amount, so it doesn't affect, you know, financial models in an ongoing sense. But every year they can come back and ask to have that program either increased or decreased depending on success or need.
Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll move on to Development Services requests. They have 4 supplementals. The first is a Historic Preservation Area Survey. This is a one-time request of $55,000. This is parts of the ongoing efforts of the Historic Preservation Commission and the city to preserve the city's historic properties. Next is the Historic Preservation Plaques. It's a one-time request of $15,000 for the purchase and installation of the historic preservation plaques throughout the city. And Development Services is requesting $200,000 as a one-time request for third-party inspectors. The inspectors are needed to support the growth in the west part of the city as well as the Vi and Mattel Adventure Park projects. Due to the complexity and size of these projects, full-time on-site inspectors are needed to have successful and on-schedule completion. And then the last one is Development Services is requesting a one-time ask of $30,000 for consulting services for assisting the city with the development and establishment and adoption of the Unified Development Code.
Mayor, I have a question. Okay, under Development Services, under Planning, which is page 108, under Professional Services, the 2026 request baseline was $7,800, and then the requested is $592,800. What is that going to be used for? That's a big increase. I'm just curious as to what it's for.
Mayor and Council, Randy Huggins from Development Services will answer that.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Mayor, Councilmember Guzman, we have the general plan is being redeveloped over the next couple of years. It'll be complete in 2026, and that was a supplemental request last year. We've started the process with an RFP, and that was $500,000, so that's the biggest portion of that.
Oh, okay, so it's for the general plan?
Yes.
Okay.
Vice Mayor, Mayor.
Go ahead, Councilmember Conchas.
You had mentioned about the $200,000 professional contractual increase one time. You had mentioned about the expansion to the west, also including the Vi Resort and other developments. How much time will this be at the Vi Resort versus other parts of the city in the west side? Thank you.
Vice Mayor, Council Member Conchas, the Vi Resort Mattel Theme Park or Adventure Park is planned to be completed in the next year and a half or so, or at least substantially complete. So we'll need those inspectors in place. They're different inspectors than we use on the 303. The 303 has large multi-million square foot tenant improvement projects and factories that are super complicated, like Nestle and Red Bull and all those, and they're all going through expansions right now. And the guys who were the inspectors that helped build those projects from the ground up, the continuity of having them in the process while we finish the build outs is just super important. We expect that process to end likely in the next year because those buildings are mostly completed. There's a few new ones starting, but with those new ones, we'll have our normal FTEs managing those projects.
So just to repeat back, these inspectors will mostly be for when the Vi Resort is getting ready to open for the $200,000 increase?
Vice Mayor, Councilmember Conscious, no, they're the same inspectors that we've had for the past 3 years, and we need to continue for another year to get them to complete the process. If we were to try and switch them out at this point, they have the institutional knowledge of the entire facility, underground, full scale of structural, electromechanical. So the continuity of keeping them there is super important so that we don't have to retrain somebody in each building or each tunnel system.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Economic Development, and they have an annual budget of $6.4 million, and they have 19.75 FTEs. The Economic Development Department drives economic growth by supporting businesses, creating jobs, enhancing quality of life through arts, culture, events, and tourism, while fostering a sustainable and drives diverse economy for Glendale. And so the first supplemental, is for $25,000 for community event support. This request is for funding in the Special Events Division to support approved private special events that benefit the community. The next is an increase for the Tohono O'odham Tourism Grant, the ongoing funding increase 2% annually per the settlement agreement. And then Economic Development is requesting a 0.25 FTE. They have an existing 0.5 or 20-hour week employee that is working 30 hours a week, which is equivalent to a 0.75 FTE. Next is a Tourism Investment Fund request, funding for programs that attract visitors and boost the local economy. And then last request is for the rent at the Westgate office. This request is aligned their budget with the rent amount. Economic Development has been covering their rent with savings from other areas in their budget.
Mayor?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a couple things. So can you give me, or somebody from Economic Development, give me some examples of things that this tourism investment fund would be used for?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, we'll turn that question over to our interim director of economic development, Trent.
Good morning, Mayor, council members. That one-time fund is an attraction piece for us to get better events for the community of Glendale, better talent so that we're able to compete. It's a one-time ask, as that will be replenished as this program gets implemented. It will be a fund that hopefully replenishes itself ongoing.
Thank you. I'm not sure I understand though. I mean, is it to attract internal talent into the city, or I'm still not understood. Give me an example of something this money would be used for.
Mayor, council member, it would be used for events like volleyball, for a John Cena that comes in, that we're able to be competitive in getting them to Glendale.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, maybe I can help since our director is relatively new. So this has been a discussion with our advisory board. The concept of this is it's really a revolving fund that we're establishing, and what it will do is be an opportunity to go after certain types of business where we need some economic incentive to come in. But the benchmark will be that if we say need to invest $50,000 for a conference where we're competing with it, that we know that the bed tax will be in excess of the $50,000. So we establish the fund, we use it to invest in attracting events, but the benchmark has to be we're not going to pay somebody $50,000 to generate $10,000 in revenue. We would invest $50,000 in this scenario to maybe gain $75,000 or $100,000. And so it's part of our using our tourism funds and making us more competitive to fill up our venues that we have here in the city.
So this would be a consideration for maybe even if, say, for example, the arena, let's say, for example, is having trouble making an act pencil out, but it's a big act that's going to draw a lot of people, for example, like a Taylor Swift type concert where, people are going to travel, they're going to book hotels, you're going to eat in the restaurants. So this would be money available to help that pencil out.
Mayor, Vice Mayor Tomlinchuk, exactly. It's
Okay.
really to put us in a position, because some of these larger events that can be real significant impact on our entertainment district and the city are very competitive. And so this gives us the ability, and it's not going to be, it won't always necessarily be that we write out a check. It could be that we subsidize rental facilities at the convention center. Or perhaps we help provide transportation from the airport for their attendees to the hotels. So it'll be on a case-by-case basis. But again, the concept is that once we establish the fund, that we'll always have an amount of dollars to be reinvesting back in attracting these events.
Okay, very good. That makes sense because I know it's a really competitive environment also. So Mayor, while I have the floor, I asked Ms. Hadlong to send everybody an email and some information from Kristen Allen of Global Ties Arizona. And I had spoken to Mr. Phelps about us starting with a membership with the Circle Cities. It provides, I think, a good opportunity for the city to connect and be exposed to and have opportunities to possible economic development situations with foreign dignitaries that are traveling through this Global Ties Arizona. It's $2,500. Mr. Phelps suggested I request it under economic development. So Mayor, if I could, I'd like to see if there's a consensus for that.
Yeah, before I ask for the consensus, I don't remember exactly how long ago, probably a year and a half ago, they had brought a delegation from Japan, and we met out at, I believe it was Gripstick, and they were concerned about issues affecting U.S. soldiers in Japan. So $2,500 to me does not seem like a big ask for the potential of making a difference, so I would support that. But I would ask if there is a consensus.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate
Okay,
that.
so there's a consensus for that. Were you finished?
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. No disrespect to Trent. Lori German got up like she wanted to give us some input. I would be interested in what she had to say about the Vice Mayor's question. Thank you.
Were all your questions answered? Were all your questions? Yeah, she's good, but if you have anything you want to add to that, you can.
Yeah, Mayor, Councilmember Turner, just going to share just echo what Kevin had said, that this is in anticipation of just bigger things that are coming. So think of when somebody puts a bid for an Olympics or a Super Bowl or something like that, a smaller scale of that, but that's the intention of the fund. Sorry, I speak with my hands.
Mayor?
Actually, hold time out. Mr. Melner, you were wanting to speak?
No, I was just in agreement with the proposal.
Okay, all right, I thought you wanted to speak. Go ahead.
Yes, Mayor, Council, and staff. So I would like to know about the $25,000 ongoing community event support. What type of community events would this fund be supporting?
I can answer that as well. So that $25,000 is to help us support events that are being produced by third parties. So anything, sometimes there's sponsorships and things like that that are asked of us from the city standpoint. And that is just to actually make us whole in things that we have similar to the other pieces that we have already been funding, but to acknowledge that within the budget.
So what I'm hearing is that this would be if another community organization is doing an event and we wanted to have a table or to sponsor that, this would be where this $25,000 would go?
Mayor, Councilmember Conchas, it would be something to that effect in addition to, again, helping support the production of the event that we know, similar to what Mr. Phelps was sharing, will bring more people to the particular areas and things like that. So something to help offset that.
Thank you. And I had a great experience with economic development and special events, and especially with our Manistee Ranch District event. So I appreciate that there is this request for an ongoing $25,000. Thank you.
Mr. Turner?
Thank you, Mayor. Back to the Tourism Investment Fund of $300,000. I support it, but I think we need to make sure that we're on the same page regarding the math. So $300,000 worth of expenditures to incentivize something coming doesn't equate to $300,000 worth of economic impact, as we normally would call it. That $300,000 that we have in our fund to be able to put forward to this actually represents somewhere in the range of $9 to $10 million worth of taxable economic activity occurring within our city limits. So that's to me, would be the target that we're shooting for, is that as we spend that money, we're looking to attract millions of dollars back. Thank you.
Mayor, members of the council, so be clear, what we would do is if there's an event coming in and we say it would generate 1,000 room nights, we would calculate our bed tax based on those 1,000 rooms, and that's the number we would use then to compare to our investment back into it. So it really is a direct return. This is the special tax dollars that are collected, which are higher than our TPT
right.
That goes into this fund. So we're really using the money that's collected from our hotels and helping to reinvest it back into our hotel properties to grow the business.
Mayor, thank you, Mr. Phelps. I'm glad we're on the same page there. This is designated here on the slide as coming out of the general fund. Is there a subset of the general fund that we track CVB through, or does it have its own line item, or what?
Mayor, members of the council, the CVB has its own org within the Economic Development Department, so that's where we track it. And then in addition to that, separately, we have a fund for or a tracking system for the hotel tax.
Okay, thank you, because I did not see them in here. I should double check perhaps, but yeah, I don't see them in here as a item coming for, a department coming forward. So it's all within that, as you just explained.
Mayor, members of the council, I can look for you to find the page, but they're a division within the.
Division?
They're on page, I'm being told they're on 113.
Okay. Tourism. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Mr. Phelps?
Yeah, Mayor, members of council, a follow-up to Councilmember Conchas's request. As you know, this time next year, we are going to be very close to be moving back into our DCRP, which means the new amphitheater will be available, the park will be completed. And so part of this ongoing support for our community funds is an anticipation that we will be driving more events into our downtown once the venue now is available. So we'll probably, over the course of the next 1 or 2 budget cycles, continue to request probably some increases so that we can both be a producer of events, those being events that the Economic Development Department is in charge of, and to be a sponsor or help assist independent promoters from coming in. And so this fund here is really in anticipation that we'll have about 3 months or 4 months next year in the upcoming budget cycle where we think we'll be able to do a lot more programming than what we're currently able to do because of the DCRP being under construction.
Mayor, thank you, City Manager Phelps, for that. I was also thinking to myself that $25,000 isn't enough, but I didn't want to ask for an increase, and I'm not going to. I wanted to ask the Economic Development Department to explain the Westgate rent increase of one time of $40,000. Can we have more information about that, please?
Mayor and council, I could answer that. So currently, the request is one time because of this is a temporary location of the Westgate location, and their budget, they were absorbing their rent. So for this fiscal year, they absorbed and savings in their existing budget, and so we're just making them whole so they don't have to use existing savings for the next fiscal year to cover their rent at Westgate.
Okay, thank you. $40,000 is not a lot of money compared to the larger scheme of the budget, but I do know that we have other office spaces and things like that. Actually, that is a statement that I'm going to retract because I don't know that. But I believe that there are other places as well, and it's good to know that it's only one time because they're going to be moving back into their main office. Thank you.
Mayor, I had a question. On page 114, under Economic Development, it lists miscellaneous services. What type of miscellaneous services are being paid for with that money?
Mayor and Councilmember Guzman, we can look at the detail and get you that answer in a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, with that, I'll move to the Emergency Management Department. The Emergency Management Department has an annual budget of about $884,000, and they have 4 full-time employees. The Emergency Management Department safeguards Glendale through coordination of mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery efforts, fostering resilience and reducing the impact of emergencies and disasters. Emergency Management has one request this year, and this is $12,000 for the increased costs of electricity. Any questions? Next, we have.
I'm sorry, Mayor. What is meant by, I guess INC is meant to include for electricity, or what are they being, basically that's their share of the electric bill for Gripstick, or what does that mean?
Mayor, members of the council, INC just means increase. And so that's an increase for their electricity. And yes, I believe that's at Gripstick.
Okay, so they basically divvy up the electric bill for Gripstick?
I believe that's the case, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And just to clarify, we only have a certain number of characters, so sometimes our abbreviations are a little creative. If you have any questions about those, just let us know.
Mayor.
Go ahead.
Mayor, council, staff, can you explain to us what is happening on page 121 with administration? It says fiscal year 2024 actuals, $1,842. And can you just help me understand what this means? Thank you.
Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Conchas, that decrease, the $194,000, was due to emergency management was previously in the fire department. It's a new department this year. When we had device counts from IT, when we did their internal charges last year, many of those devices were moved to emergency management and shouldn't have been there. A device count for this year, we were able to remove that amount and put it in the proper department.
Thank you so much.
Mayor, I have one more question there. On page 122, under internal premiums for administration, there was a decrease, quite a large decrease. Can you explain what that was from?
Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Guzman, that's basically the same answer
Oh, is it
that
the
I did.
same?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
the exact same reason that went down by so much.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Lindsay. Next, we have engineering. Engineering has an annual budget of $4.7 million, and they have 39 FTEs. The engineering department enhances quality of life by delivering safe public infrastructure, managing CIP projects, and overseeing private development services. Engineering has 2 requests this year. The first request is a one-time supplemental of $250,000 for the Glendale Airport levee maintenance. The levee protects the airport from infrastructure and the development around the levee. The next request is a one-time request of $100,000 for outside plan review for a new telecommunications installation. This request was entered as a one-time supplemental due to the anticipated decrease of these types of permits in the future.
Wait, I have a question.
You have a question on this? Go ahead.
In engineering, yes, under CIP administration salaries, is this, are you adding employees here? On page 127?
Mayor, Councilmember Guzman, that would be the associated healthcare cost increase.
Oh, okay.
No additional employees are being added here.
Okay. Thank you.
For field operations, they have an annual budget of $81.7 million, and they have 195 FTEs. The Field Operations Department enhances community health and safety through efficient solid waste collection, landfill operations, fleet maintenance, and facility management while supporting city departments and critical assets. Okay, so the first supplemental for field operations, they're requesting $215,000 for the increase of electricity and natural gas. This is for the new buildings that will be coming online in fiscal year 26, such as City Hall and the Police Evidence Storage Facility, as well as increased cost of the electricity and gas. Field Operations is requesting $75,000 for the increase, contractual increase in custodial for parts and supplies of the new buildings. The next three lines are related to a new FTE. Field Operations is requesting request for a field or for facilities maintenance supervisor. The new FTE will assist in the oversight of new building systems and software, retrofitting existing buildings with new systems and software, and assist in monitoring contracts. And then we have two supplementals for grip sticks, and these requests are to support the increased cost of utility and operating cost at the grip stick facility. The next four supplementals are for landfill. The first one is request for an increase to a fuel cost of $70,000. This analysis was provided by to Budget and Finance by the Fleet Division. The next request for Glendale Works wages. It's similar supplemental requests requested by Community Services. This increase to support the minimum wage increase. Landfill is requesting a supplemental of $10,000 in professional development to increase training and provide membership opportunities for staff. And $10,000 is being requested for software maintenance for contractual increases of existing landfill software. And the next, the remaining supplementals are for Fleet Services. Fleet is requesting a supplemental of $275,000 for contracted equipment maintenance and repair. Fleet Management has experienced an inflationary increase of 30% in outside contracted maintenance and repair services, which provides specialized repairs for vehicles and equipment that exceeds the current internal staffing workload. Next is a request for $50,000 for vehicle supplies and parts to cover the inflationary increases for these items. And Fleet is requesting two new FTEs. Both are equipment mechanics. The two additional entry-level mechanics will cover growth in the number of fleet vehicles and support service levels for transit and public safety requirements. The cost of these two new FTEs does include costs for the vehicle supplies needed for the fleet mechanics. Next is a decrease of $26,488 for software maintenance. Fleet has consolidated software and the ongoing maintenance is being covered in the IT budget. And the last one is for $28,000. This increase is for the integrated business service contract for parts maintenance.
Mayor?
Go ahead.
Thank you. You said, so the 70/40 Fleet Services two new FTEs for $341,888. You said it included something else, and I missed that part.
Mayor and Council, yes, those positions come with vehicle supplies that are needed as part of being a mechanic.
Vehicle supply, so that's including like tools and things like that they would need?
Mayor and Council, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mayor. On page 134, under equipment replacement, I see fiscal year 2026 request of over $11 million. What is that replacing? What type of equipment?
Mayor, council members, Councilmember Guzman, that's the 1020 fund is the VRF, the Vehicle Replacement Fund. So the funding that's in there is to replace the scheduled vehicles that are scheduled to be replaced next year.
Okay, but what vehicles are they?
Mayor, members of the council, that's the city's fleet fund for most of its vehicles. So that would be
Cars,
fire,
trucks?
I mean, sorry, mainly not fire trucks, but other types of fire vehicles, police cars, code compliance cars, all of the different types of cars that are used by city staff, except those that are paid for out of an enterprise fund. So it doesn't include like the water vehicles or landfill vehicles, and we also budget fire trucks separately, but all of the other service vehicles in the city, that's about an 8% increase, just again, based on inflation and the cost of vehicles.
Okay, all right, thank you.
If no more questions, we'll move to fire. Fire Services has an annual budget of $80.4 million, and they have 304 FTEs. The Glendale Fire Department enhances community safety through innovative emergency medical services, fire suppression, public education, crisis support, and fire prevention, utilizing an all-hazard response model and the automatic aid system for efficient service. Fire is requesting $65,512 for the Assistance to Firefighter Grants Program. The funding is to pay for the 15% matching funding requirement of the grant program for curriculum, certification testing, overtime, and backfill for 44 Glendale Fire Department or fire officers. Next fire's request is $25,000 for behavioral health. As part of the fire's MOU, and if the fire department will provide members an option for mental health screening at the time of their annual medical exam. The fire estimates that 50% of the eligible workforce may take advantage of this resource. And fire is requesting $58,000 for CAD or computer-aided dispatch fees. Fire is seeing a year-over-year increase in call volume. The fees are based on dispatch counts and are calculated from the number of dispatches from the prior fiscal year. And fire is requesting $150,000 for cancer screening. In addition, as part of the MOU, the screenings for occupational cancer early detection at the time of annual medical physical exam will be continued to be offered to the fire personnel. And fire is requesting $210,000 for EMS medical supplies. After approval of the most recent ambulance contract, fire is now responsible for the purchase and stocking of their EMS supplies. And then we have the turnout extractor relocated for Fire Station 158. This is a one-time request of $55,000 for Fire Station 158, located at 6261 North 83rd Avenue. Currently, the extractor is located in the green zone living quarters of the fire station. These funds will relocate the extractor from the green zone to the red zone, which will assist with reducing firefighter exposure to carcinogens. Next is $8,000 to add additional AEDs throughout the city is also being requested. This was part of a council item of special interest, and a contract has been entered with Cintas Corporation, who installs, manages, and maintains all units throughout the city buildings. The last supplemental on this page is for the turnout maintenance, repair, and inspection for $47,000. This increase is needed to cover contractual and vendor price increases.
Mayor? Thank you, Mayor. I've got a couple things for fire. The Gripstick street repairs, are those, is that our share, or how and I'm just, I guess I've never asked before, and I'm not sure I know. I know we share the cost with our other partners at Gripstick. So does that work also with the exterior, with the street repairs, the parking lot, the striping, and the things on the exterior of the building as well?
Mayor and Council, Mr. St. John is here to answer those.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, we need the appropriation for the full dollar amount, but we will pay 51% of the actual cost.
Okay, very good, thank you. Mayor, I do have a couple other questions on the supplementals requested but not recommended. So there's an NFPA 1582 medical exam for $35,222 that was requested but not recommended. Hello.
Hello, Mayor, members of Council, Vice Mayor Tomachov. In the original bring forward of supplementals, there was a request to expand our 1582 to some of our civilian workforce in the Prevention Bureau. After we went back against what the city provides for medical benefits and annual physicals, we shrunk that down to include our civilian fire inspectors who actually have to go into what would be an IDLH with their gear. So we just shrunk that down from what the original request was.
Okay. All right, thank you. I've got a couple more, so you might want to, also the request for the upgrade of the SCBA's for $150,000 was requested but not recommended. So are we not doing that, or?
Mayor, members of council, Vice Mayor Tomachov, the equipment is an enhancement. We have in, I think, 2 or 3 years in our CIP, we will be replacing our entire fleet of SCBA's. So really the interest on the check down of the different opportunities, we use MSA Mine Safety Appliance for our SCBA's. Peoria, I think, is a Scott product. Surprise uses a Draeger. So there is a place where we have tools deployed at the scene to connect different types of SCBA's in case of that. The industry is moving to, it would be universal across all manufacturers. We feel like we meet the intent of firefighter safety on scene. We're replacing our entire fleet of 2 years. So again, when we looked at that opportunity, we just pulled that back, and we'll wait to replace our entire fleet of SCBA's.
Okay, very good, thank you.
You said you had a couple other items? You're good? All right. Go ahead.
I also wanted to highlight and ask questions about the supplemental request by fund that was not recommended for fire hose budget increase and for radio test systems.
Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Conchess, again, we looked at the opportunity in our exercises of managing what would be industry increases based on the realities of the climate. And we pulled those requests back to match increases by the vendor to say we will just go back in, tighten up the screws on our requests, and look to use the dollars you have provided us to manage our inventory. And then similarly with the radio, our great partner in the police department have 2 pieces of that equipment. This is to do the updates to our portable radios. We are, again, held that back because we do the similar work as our PD partner, so we're using their equipment, so we just pulled it back this year.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, I have a question.
Go ahead.
I know we use a lot of acronyms, but what is that CBA that you guys were talking about?
Self-contained breathing apparatus, that's the backpack that they wear.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
To breathe air.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Chief.
Mayor,
Who's asking? Go ahead.
I just wanted to highlight and thank Mayor Council staff for the $150,000 supplemental request for cancer screenings. I know that when I met with the fire union, they talked a lot about cancer, and it's a really big issue. So I really appreciate that this is in here, and I wanted to highlight that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. The next supplementals for fire are gripstick, and as Mr. St. John mentioned, the one-time requests are for appropriation only due to those partnerships. The first one is $114,000 for the audio-video updates. And the updates will be for the gripstick auditorium and lecture halls. The AV system has it needs to be replaced. Tough one. Next is a request for $5,000 for fire recruit evaluations. The supplemental is to maintain a learning management system known as Evaluations Platform. This will support the recruitment training program at the Glendale Regional Public Safety Training Center. $13,000 is being requested for the purchase of a new printer at Gripstick. The current printer was purchased in 2012 and has passed its life expectancy. Next is a request for $150,000 for Recruit Academy funding. The Fire Recruit Training Academy request is to cover soft costs, ensure solvency, and the costs are evenly shared among the partners, partnering fire departments, Glendale, Surprise, and Peoria. Next is $80,000 request for a new skid steer. The skid steer will assist Gripstick training grounds cleanup and grounds maintenance. Then as discussed earlier, a request for street repairs at Gripstick of $350,000. And this is for the repair and maintenance of the streets and parking lots on the Gripstick campus. And the last one is a request to replace turnout extractor with a large, more efficient unit. This is required to ensure proper decontamination of fire turnout gear.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
On page 170, under PS Training Ops Fire, professional services. What is the professional services that's being paid for here? Just curious.
We'll defer that question to Chief Freeberg.
Page 170.
Actual page 170.
Yes.
I'm getting there. Thank you.
Sure.
Public safety training ops, professional services, professional development or professional services.
Yeah, professional services.
So in our professional services, training operations, I'll have to dig in and get to the line item of what the professional services in training ops. Let me get into the line item of that. Can I come back to
She
you?
may have the answer over here.
Go ahead.
Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Guzman, I can answer that question for you.
thank you.
Oh, okay, sure.
Sorry, Chief Freeberg.
No.
So they have a base budget in that particular line item of $136,000 for just general professional and contractual services. There's $5,000 in that line item for fire recruit evaluations. The $114,000 for the AV updates for the lecture hall, that supplemental that Jonathan discussed on the previous slide is in that line item, as well as the street repairs, the $358,000 supplemental. So that makes up that $613,000.
Oh, okay, so that's under professional services?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to let the council know that all of these one-time costs will be paid for with a buy-in from the El Mirage Police Department into the Gripstick as a partnering agency. So at your March 25th voting meeting, you approved bringing El Mirage Police Department into the Gripstick as a participating agency. With that entry, there's a fee for capital buy-in. So El Mirage will pay roughly $637,000 to come into the Gripstick, and then they'll have their pro rata share of the ongoing O&M. That $637,000 was recommended by the Chiefs Board to the Executive Board to pay for these one-time costs, and that was all approved. So this is simply, as Jonathan said, this is simply appropriation. The cash will come from the Gripstick revenue account.
That's good, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. St. John. Next, we have Human Resources. They have an annual budget of $74 million, and they have 31 FTEs. The Human Resources and Risk Management Department creates a safe and inclusive environment for city staff while providing exceptional services regarding benefits, employee relations, organizational development, risk management, talent acquisition, ensuring fairness and accountability across the city workforce. The first FTE request is for an HR administrative support assistant. For the past 3 years, the function of this position has been performed by temporary staff. Due to the increased workload and a permanent full-time position is needed to successfully perform these duties. HR is requesting $10,000 for the Public Safety Retirement System attorney contract. This request is for funding to be in compliance with Arizona revised statute, which mandates that each local public safety personnel retirement system board be presented by independent counsel with costs covered by the employer. Next is a request for the PayScale HR compensation software of $38,000. This system was implemented this year, and this request will recover the ongoing maintenance of that system. HR requesting a classification and compensation technician as a new FTE. There is currently one employee responsible for these duties, and due to increased workload, temporary staff have been utilized to complete these duties. With the success of the temporary staff, it's clear an additional full-time employee is needed to properly complete these duties. The one-time cost for this FTE is to cover the new employee's computer equipment. The two new FTE requests have a net savings of $9,500, and that's from reclassing a higher salary HR administrator position to these two lower salary positions. And then HR is requesting an increase of $3 million to our benefits trust fund by addressing rising healthcare costs driven by inflation, workforce shortages, and aging population demands, pharmaceutical price hikes, mental health needs, and a high-cost medical technologies. This request also contains a $1.5 million for the increase to the employee health savings account. And then the last request for HR is a new position, a risk management specialist. These duties are accomplished by this position are currently being performed by temporary staff. The addition of this FTE will streamline processes and increase efficiencies.
Mayor?
Go ahead.
Thank you. So I on the FTE schedule, basically, HR is asking for 3 new FTEs total. They're adding 3 and then subtracting 1 or reclassifying 1. Am I correct with that?
Mayor and council, yes.
Okay. So we have one full-time employee that's being, I guess their job title's being changed to a full-time class and comp technician, and then we're adding a class and comp technician.
Mayor, members of the council, there's a full-time HR administrator who is leaving. That employee is retiring. And so Human Resources is requesting to take that position and make it 2 positions. One is the admin support person, and the other is the comp and class tech. The net change is negative $9,500. So we're taking a more expensive position and making 2 less expensive positions there. And so it's 2 for 1, essentially.
Okay.
And then the other one is an addition. It's paid for in the risk management trust fund for a risk management specialist. If you have more questions about that, we can have Jim Brown come and answer them.
Okay. Thank you, because I was getting a little confused about the FTEs with HR, so thank you for explaining that. Just out of curiosity, are we looking at AI for any of these, basically that are administrative tasks where that might be a question for innovation and technology person, but streamlining how we do some of this stuff where you can basically put the information in and it basically does the analysis for you. Hello.
Mayor, council, Mr. Brown is here.
Thank you, Mayor and Vice Mayor. It's a very good question. It is something that we've been looking at, particularly in the creation of job descriptions, in some of the HR policies, risk policies, those types of things. When we are creating those, we do look at that. So that is something that is time saving. As far as utilizing it to cover some of the full level services that we currently provide, that's still progressing. That's something that we would work with IT to look at in the future to see if that's something that we could utilize.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm not talking about replacing everybody with AI, but some of the analytical processes that we do. A lot of even cities are now moving into that direction where you can get a lot of work done in a very short amount of time by utilizing that. So, one more question on the class and comp. Do we outsource any part of that anymore? We brought that entire process in-house.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, we do not. There was a time where we would hire a consultant to come in, and it was a significant amount of money. We found that it's more accurate if we do that ourselves because we know the positions, we know what our employees are doing. We work very closely with our directors. So we're able to manage that in-house much better. As you see here, we're adding PayScale. We've already added PayScale, which is a system that will help this organization ensure compliance and make sure that we're up to date on market and those types of things that are critical in retaining our employees.
Very good, thank you.
Mayor?
Mr. Turner, and then you're next.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, as long as you're up there, I wanted to flip to page 176. A request not recommended was in the area of employee recognition, service anniversary program. Can you tell us both what, if anything, we do now, and then what this was going to add to the program?
Sure. Mayor, Councilmember Turner, currently we recognize employees for years of service with this program. This program recognizes those from 10, 15, 20, 25, and on up, so it's tiered, and they receive a certain amount. The dollar amount, I believe it starts out around $25 and goes up to maybe $100, something along those lines currently. In working with our Glendale Employee Engagement Committee, they had recommended that we increase that. So that's something that we had talked to the city manager's office about, and certainly I believe they're on board with that. To what Assistant City Manager Rios said earlier today, this is something we may be able to absorb in our existing budget without asking for the supplemental.
Other than monetary awards, are there any kind of recognition they get at service anniversaries?
Mayor and Councilmember Turner, that's what they get in terms of service anniversaries. They get a nice street sign when they retire, which is pretty cool. We also have our Success Factor Excellence Awards, which we recognize our employees monetarily when they're doing outstanding work and services, and they're nominated by their fellow employees for those types of awards. And then we also have on the spot, did I say something wrong?
No,
Sorry.
you're good.
Okay. And then we have on the spot, I thought I was being April Fool around. And then we have on the spot awards that we can provide to our employees when they're caught doing something well on the spot. They can get a gift card for $25, $50, something along those lines. So we try to do that as much as possible, and we've got funding existing in our budget to do that.
Okay. Thank
Mayor,
you.
members of the council, the only other thing I wanted to add is on the service awards, I believe they also get time off as recognition for that time. So they may get a day off or something like
That's
that
correct.
as well.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mayor. The Councilmember Turner asked all my questions. Thanks.
All right. And Mr. Milner, you're back, right?
Yes, I am.
Very good.
I have a question, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Okay. On page 181, under risk management, professional services again, we had a baseline of 5 million, and we're requesting 1,756,000. And there's a difference of 1,756,281. I'm just curious what that's for.
Mayor, Councilmember Guzman, that's, if you look a couple of lines above, we're kind of readjusting some of our line items to make sure that they're accurately reflected in our budget. So that's not an increase overall in our budget, it's just a movement.
Okay, yeah, I saw that. That's what I was wondering. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Next, we have the Innovation and Technology Department, and they have an annual budget of $35 million with 51 FTEs. The Innovation and Technology Department provides Glendale with secure, reliable, and efficient technology solutions while enhancing business processes through the lean methodology and innovative applications. So IT is requesting $650,000 to upgrade the City of Glendale's current Office 365 suite to the enterprise level Microsoft 365. This upgrade will enhance security with new features and support the city's overall security posture and strategic initiative. They have the addition of a full-time service desk technician request. This will assist in handling IT desktop support and will focus on off-site technical tasks such as equipment deployments and project support. IT is requesting $237,000 for software maintenance increase. This additional funding will cover the rising annual software maintenance fees, which ensures access to updates, upgrades, and vendor support for citywide systems. Next is a $50,000 request for certificate management services to improve tracking and control of digital certificates for web domains, servers, and emails. The current process is currently being performed manually. Another FTE request is for administrative support specialist. The duties for this position are currently being completed by temporary staff and include processing purchase orders, budget support, coordinating new hire onboarding, and acting as a department liaison for building updates. Next is a request for $75,000 to migrate the Security Operations Center to new providers. The migration will improve the city's cybersecurity posture by improving the city's ability to detect modern threats. And then the last one is a $750,000 request for temporary project-based staffing to address their growing demand for services and the shortage of qualified technical professionals. Some of those roles would include project manager, business analyst, a report developer, and business systems analyst. Innovation and Technology requesting 5 new projects for this upcoming fiscal year. The first is a Microsoft Teams voice pilot. The city's current phone system is nearing its end of life, and no new software or significant features additions will be available after 2025. A pilot for Microsoft Teams Voice, or MTV, a cloud-based phone system add-on that allows users to make and receive calls within and outside the organization. Next is $660,000 being requested for the relocation of the data center that is currently located at the Glendale Police Department main station. The building is planned to be remodeled after the City Hall project is complete, and to reduce the risk of service disruption, the city systems, the intention is to relocate the on-premise data center to a third-party managed data center. Next is a cemetery software replacement. The new system will replace outdated paper-based processes with an integrated web-based application. It will also enhance the user experience for families and provide advanced functionality for city employees. Next is a migration of reports out of the Tableau reporting tool to Power BI. These funds will support the hiring of a contract to migrate reports currently in Tableau to Power BI. So the city is using a single-based intelligence tool. And the last project is for on-premise data warehouse support request. And this is engage a consultant to enhance the city's on-premise data warehouse to optimize how data is brought into the on-premise data warehouse from different sources. The data warehouse assists staff by enhancing the ability to provide powerful, accurate, and timely reports.
Mayor? Thank you, Mayor. So if I understood correctly on the temp staffing for IT, it's basically for difficult to fill positions. Is that what, did I understand you correctly?
Mayor and Council, Mr. Martin will answer that for you.
Mayor and Council, Stephen Martin, CIO. Yes, that is for difficult to fill positions as well as for work and tasks that we do not have capacity for with regular staff. And the burden to bring on that additional staff, not only would we be adding additional FTEs, but we'd have to scope it and figure out what we have to do around that. So the temp staff helps us to achieve those shorter term goals, and that's why it's just every year we ask rather than ongoing.
Okay, well, it's a very competitive market. So, I mean, is that part of the reason why? So easier to, the ebb and flow of having, a full-time staff for these type of jobs? Because I understand the tech market is incredibly competitive for talent, so.
Mayor and Council, yes, that's entirely accurate. It is very difficult in the public sector to recruit top talent. We do have a lot of them working for us, but it's a very competitive market.
Okay, I did have one other question. I know you've got some projects in here, and we just spoke about it earlier, but I mean, are we looking at moving some of our administrative processes and the analytics that's required of RFPs and class and comp studies and that type of thing, and looking at utilizing AI? And I don't know I think that would probably not fair to ask you that right now, honestly, I'm sorry, but I know some cities are starting to move in that direction where it's, the AI doesn't care who anybody is. It basically just analyzes submittals and says, here's you know, here's the analytics for this. So are we looking at doing some of that to streamline some of our processes? And if not, how would we accommodate that in this budget?
Mayor and Council, yes, that's accurate. We are looking at it. We have been studying it for some time. In fact, the entire industry has, especially in local government. We're looking at ways that we can leverage it. However, we have to start with some pilot programs where we can actually understand what the return is going to be to us for that significant investment, and we're not quite there yet. It's probably going to be another year or two before we're ready to invest.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. The book that you gave us on page 183, it shows the car allowances for directors and key staff for 2007-99 and health savings account, but in the presentation online, it doesn't have that in there.
Mayor, members of the council, that's been the case in every department. Because those are those citywide supplementals that were entered by us, and we talked about them at the very beginning. We didn't want to repeat them here. They're not being repeated. They're part of the they're part of the larger ask in a citywide supplemental, and so we're just not covering them one by one because they're all together in that first slide that we started with this morning.
Okay, thank you.
If no further questions, I'll move to the Intergovernmental Programs Department. So the Intergovernmental Programs Department has an annual budget of $816,000, and they have 3 FTEs. The Intergovernmental Programs Department advocates for Glendale's legislative policies, coordinates state and federal agendas, protects city's interests, and supports officials on regional and national policy committees. They did not submit any supplementals this fiscal year. Next, we have the Mayor and Council's office. They have an annual budget of $2.6 million, and they have 12 FTEs. The Mayor and Council's office serves as Glendale legislative and policy-making body, fostering public participation, supporting district development, and engaging with citizens through meetings, media, and community leadership. Mayor's office has one request this year for $5,000. This request is to enhance community events that the Mayor's office regularly hosts throughout the year, as well as partnerships with local nonprofit groups to further their missions in the community. Turn over.
I thought he was finished, but maybe he isn't. Okay.
Are you finished? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. It was brought up in a Arizona Republic story a couple of months, I think, ago that some council members are receiving a $950 monthly stipend and also, I think, a $400 car allowance. Some are, some aren't. I'm not keeping track of who does what, but I was just looking for where is it accounted for in the Mayor and Council office budget.
Mayor, members of the council, it's in the salaries and benefits area.
Can you be more specific for me? Such as on page something I should be looking at.
Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Turner, the mayor's portion of that would be in his budget, and then the council member's portion of that would be in city council administration versus your own district budgets. What's currently in your district budgets is your district improvement funds. Anything related to salaries and benefits for the city council and city council staff members is in the council office administration division.
Mayor, members of the council, it may help Councilmember Turner to say, when we produce these books, we roll things up in together. So there's not a specific line item that identifies those. They're rolled up into salaries and benefits. And as Ms. Lindsay said, for the council members, they're in the council admin budget. For the mayor, they're included in his area at the top of page 196 where it says personnel services. It's included in that number.
$196 or $197?
I'm sorry, for the mayor, I read it wrong. It's 198.
198.
Looked like
So it's in the salaries line? Mayor, Vicky, you're saying it's in the salaries line on page 198? Is that?
Mayor, members of the council, that's correct.
So unrolling that would provide information if somebody's looking for it?
Mayor, members of the council, yes, if you'd like a breakdown of that for any reason, we can get you that. We don't have that with us today, but we can get that certainly.
Thank you.
Mayor, so in the future, not this budget cycle, but I'd like to talk with the mayor and the councils and the city manager's office about a 20-hour communications assistant, either for the whole council or for each individual council district. And then also in the future, putting in money, it could be in community activity for a participatory budgeting program, a pilot program. This is a program where you have a certain amount of money, for example, the district improvement funds, and you go out to the community, to the district, and you ask them where would they like those funds to be distributed. And so that would cost some money in terms of putting that program together. But those are just two things that came to my mind when I thought about this department. Thank you, Mayor.
If no additional questions, we'll move to non-departmental. The non-departmental has an annual budget of close to $10 million. There are no FTEs in this department. The non-department are for items that are not specific to one particular department. And there's one supplemental. This is for the rent at the media center for mayor, council's office, communications, intergovernmental programs, and the city manager's department that are currently housed there. The rent was previously being paid out of economic development's budget, and this request is to remove the budget to the proper department or non-departmental department.
Mayor?
Who's asking? Go ahead.
So I have a request for Manistee Ranch, but I wasn't sure if it's in non-departmental or if it would be in Parks and Rec. Which department would that fall under?
Mayor, Councilmember Conchas, I would recommend that it fall under the Parks Department rather than non-departmental.
Thank you.
Mayor, on non-departmental, I think that it's been changed for the last couple of years, but the transfer back for the money that was sent to the NHL, and I think, was it 2011 and 12 or 10 and whenever it was, is that in here somewhere?
Mayor, members of the council, it is not in this department. At the next meeting, when we come back on, I believe it's the 22nd, we'll show that it's in the transfers budget. So when we bring the budgets all back, we'll have the CIP, the operating budgets, the transfers budget, and the debt service budget.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we'll move to organizational performance. They have an annual budget of $788,000, and they have 3 full-time employees. The organizational performance department administrators strategic planning, performance management, and data governance programs, making the city more effective through continuous improvement and transparent data-driven decision-making. And there are no requests for the fiscal year 26 budget.
Any questions? Okay.
Thank you. Next, we have Parks and Recreation. They have an annual budget of almost $23 million with 86 FTEs. The Park and Recreation Department enriches lives by offering inclusive programs and maintaining parks, trails, and facilities that promote growth, play, and innovation while hosting diverse recreation centers and providing a variety of services at the Civic Center. The first request for parks is almost $90,000 to cover the increase in water utility rates. The next two supplementals are to cover contractual contract increases at FRAC and the Adult Center. There's a custodial services. $36,000 is being requested to cover the utilities for the new splash pad at Greenway Granada Park. $94,000 is being requested to increase the pool season dates by opening the pools 8 days earlier. This will cover the additional cost to open the pools the Saturday of Memorial Day weekend. And then parks maintenance and repairs supplemental of $130,000 covers a replacement of engineered wood fiber for park playgrounds, backflow prevention devices, picnic tables, benches, trash receptacles, drinking fountains, and materials and supplies for irrigation and infrastructure. And the last request on this page is $50,000 to address maintenance needs at the different aquatic facilities. That includes gel coating repair for slides, pump and motor maintenance, and deck repair. This is essential to be able to provide clean and safe pools for the community's enjoyment.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, Councilmember Conchas.
Yes, so I just wanted to make sure, in my budget request was for the Rose Lane Aquatic Center repair. So in this $50,000 supplemental request and in the budget as well, does that include pool repair and maintenance for the Rose Lane Aquatic Center?
Mayor and Council, we'll turn that question over to our Director of Parks, Mr. John Kennedy.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Vice Mayor, Councilmember Conchas. Yes, that includes repairs at both pool facilities.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Next, Parks is requesting $70,000 to prune park trees more frequently, enhancing tree health, public safety, and storm resilience. Parks is requesting $200,000 for improvements and repairs to small neighborhood parks. The next two supplementals are to transition programs previously funded through ARPA to the general fund, including sports and recreation programs, a mobile recreation program, ball field maintenance of the city sports complexes, and the staffing at the 3 neighborhood community centers. Next is a request of $60,000 for vegetation clearing at Thunderbird Conservation, and has been recommended by the fire marshal to create a 15-foot break near homes. And then the last one is $140,000 to cover the operating and maintenance costs of Heroes Park, including landscaping, custodial work, and water utilities.
Mayor, members of the council, I'd actually like Mr. Kennedy, our Parks and Recreation Director, to come up for a moment and talk about the increase for the extended pool season and what the thinking is on that particular supplement.
Thank you, Ms. Rios. Mayor and Council, as part of an internal review, as we look at our operations, we were looking at things from a customer standpoint. And when we came to reviewing our aquatics program, the long time practice here has been our pools did not open until the Tuesday, the week after Memorial Day weekend, which is an anomaly in this type of climate. All the other cities that we have surveyed and looked into, and even the communities I come from in the Midwest, your typical pool season opens Saturday of Memorial Day weekend. So we felt as though this was a service that we could recommend, provided the right amount of funding, to be able to open up the pools the Saturday of Memorial Day weekend. As we know, the climate, the heat has already started by then. So we're looking at this from a customer service standpoint to meet best practices in our industry.
Mayor? Can I ask Mr. Kennedy, so thank you, and I think that's an excellent idea. I mean, it does get hot here way before Memorial Day weekend. But does that also include making sure that our pay for lifeguards is competitive and that we're competitive with our recruitment and our retention? I know it's been before your time, but it's been relatively recent that we were unable to open pools because we didn't have enough lifeguards. So we opened up, I think we had to do one at a time. We opened Rose Lane and then closed it and then opened up the Foothills pool. So is that part of this, that we remain, lifeguard pay's gotten, pretty competitive among, public pools?
Mayor and Vice Mayor, yes. So a couple of years ago, as you're aware, the council did support us raising the annual pay or the hourly pay for our lifeguards to be able to recruit and keep our pools open, which we've been able to do the last couple of years. So that funding is in place within our baseline budget, so that is ongoing. But this is also an opportunity to help. If we're increasing the number of days available to work, that also makes the job a little bit more attractive to those lifeguards. So it'll help supplement that recruitment as the other cities catch up with the hourly rates that we have. So we're looking at this from a competitive standpoint as well.
I want to kind of add on to what she was just asking. I seen an ad the other day. I don't remember where I seen it, but if I remember right, the pay for lifeguards, I believe, was $25 an hour. Is that correct?
Mayor and Council, yes, that is correct.
Yeah. So I would think that we're probably exactly where we should be. That's pretty good. That's more than my wife makes. So she's not a lifeguard though. All right. Thank you.
Only at home.
Mayor, if I may, there's another supplemental here. I just wanted to talk a little bit more about the second one on the slide that says improvements in small and neighborhood parks. During the CIP discussion, there were some questions about how do we budget for those small neighborhood parks, and when we went back and took a look at it, we do see an opportunity there to increase the budget by this $200,000 to take care of some of those things, like benches or tree trimming or trash cans or whatever it may be in our smaller parks. So this is a reflection of something that council discussed and asked for, and we went back and added to the ongoing budget.
I'd like to ask one more question. Do you utilize Glendale Works at all for any of these smaller projects for tree trimming or raking or picking up litter or any of that stuff?
Mayor and Council, yes, we are fortunate to be able to utilize the Glendale Works program as we work with other city departments to schedule that out, so we've had great success, especially along some of our washes and helping maintain those areas.
Perfect.
Mayor?
Go ahead.
My question is about revenues that we receive from the fees that we charged in order to get into the pool, and where I'm getting with this question is understanding how much that is, and if we could offer 1 or 2 free days during the season. So how much revenue do we receive from those fees?
Mayor, council members, Councilmember Conscious, it's not a number I know off the top of my head and have with me. We'd be glad to get that back to you.
Thank you.
But that is something, in the past, we have worked with your office and your predecessor's office to provide, and with the fire department, where we provided a day that you speak of that's been a free admittance. So that's something we could more than happy to continue working through.
Thank you, and I'm glad that we're having a meeting with the Glendale Fire Charities on Friday about that event. Thank you.
Mayor? Thank you, Mayor. I got a couple questions for you, Mr. Kennedy. So under parks maintenance, I mean, that's a big number, but it's not rolled out. But does that include the maintenance of Skunk Creek, along Skunk Creek? Where would I find that?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, that number would be within our professional contractual line item within park maintenance budget.
Okay. And then I have another question on supplemental requested and not approved for the dust control treatment at Thunderbird Conservation Park, which I believe is that 55th Avenue and Pinnacle Peak dirt parking lot. Is that because we're going to be moving forward with the project and the improvements at Thunderbird Park?
Mayor and Vice Mayor, that's one of the reasons, and depending on the timing of when that construction project might happen, if it hadn't happened yet, we will work to absorb it within our existing budget by moving budget dollars around within line items. But we anticipate once that project gets done, the future need for that dust control to go away.
Right, I believe, yeah. The intention is to enlarge the parking lot and pave it. So, because when you come around that hill, especially this time of the year when it's nice in the morning, there's a big cloud of dust there. I don't know whether we're within Maricopa County dust control guidelines, but with all the cars coming in and out of there, that's been a concern for a long time. And I know they put that coating on the dust, but it doesn't last very long. So If we're not able to get going on that part of it, then we're gonna do some other, or find the money in your budget to do some dust mitigation there.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, that is correct.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Mayor, this is where I wanted to ask the question to the staff about a historical society asking for money for Saguaro Ranch and Manistee Ranch Park, and if we could put $20,000 into Manistee Ranch repairs and things like that. But does that go through your department, sir, or does that go through a different process?
Mayor, Councilmember Conscious, yes, you can work through our department, and if, depending on the type of item it would be, we may also work with field operations, we'll work together as we work together well.
Thank you. Mayor, I would like to ask the council for consensus for $20,000 for Manistee Ranch, and I know that there could also be some requests for Saguaro Ranch as well.
Mayor? So are you requesting for the ranch house then, or the park, the city maintains the park? This would be a request for the house?
Yes, for the house, for the historic preservation part of it.
All right, I would support that.
I support that.
Okay, you have a consensus.
Me too.
Just to clarify, I heard for Manistee Ranch, but I also heard Saguaro Ranch Park mentioned as well, but no amount. Is this split or 20,000 just for Manistee Ranch?
Mayor, if I might?
Go ahead.
I don't want to sound like I'm not out to get everything I can for amenities in my district, but I think that should be allocated to Manistee Ranch. Saguaro Ranch, we're doing a master plan update. We've got a whole series of projects we're doing. It's in line for its improvements, I believe. And so I think that this is probably a better use. We're already trying to cover Saguaro Ranch. Thanks.
Mayor, so with that information, I would just like to include Manistee Ranch in that request, if the council's okay with that.
Anybody else? No?
Thank you. The next department is the Police Services Department. The Police Department has an annual budget of $152.5 million, and they have 621 FTEs. The Glendale Police Department protects lives and property through high-quality services, crime prevention, and community engagement using innovative techniques across operations, investigations, and support services. The first request is for $34,000 for a new crypto tracking software. This software will help to track and seize cryptocurrency used by criminals aiding investigations and prosecutions. The next is $25,000 to support the police department's 9 police canines as being requested to provide ongoing funding for operations and replacements. The police department is requesting $90,000 for forensic microscope for ballistic analysis, which will improve evidence examination and case accuracy. Next request of $50,000 for one-time costs related to relocating operations to the new property and evidence building. And the police department is requesting to reclassify the public safety and media program manager due to the additional responsibility this person is assuming. $350,000 is being requested to replace the obsolete backup power for the regional wireless cooperative radio system, ensuring reliable communications. And then PD is requesting $390,000 for annual software maintenance increase. This represents about an 8% increase to their critical software systems. Next, we have $37,000 being requested for a TrueNarc handheld device to test subsistence on site at the Foothills substation, reducing officers' travel time. Then we have $474,000 is being requested to cover the ongoing maintenance for critical software tools like Live 911, public records management, and data aggregation software. And then the last request of $29,000 is being requested to cover their annual increase in subscription fees for radio services and maintenance of the regional wireless cooperative. Any questions on the Police Department's request.
Yeah, you do, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. On the ballistic helmet replacement program, it's under supplementals requested but not approved. Are we not doing that, or is it being absorbed within the existing budget?
Mayor and council, we'll defer that question to Chief Brandt, the police chief.
Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor. To answer that question, we have 3 additional years, so we don't have immediate. This was to kind of build out a program for replacement so that we didn't have to buy them all at one time. So our current helmets will last for another year or 2. We'll be looking for other opportunities, grants, those sorts of things to potentially replace them, or look to a future budget year.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Mayor.
Go ahead.
Yes, I also had the same question about the K-9 unit grapplers and the supplemental request by fund not recommended. Are those going to be absorbed somewhere else? Because I also see there's a K-9 line supply budget, but can you talk to me a little bit more about that request, the K-9 unit grapplers?
Mayor, Councilmember Conscious, yes, I'd be looking for ways in which I could save money in other places in the budget to add additional grapplers. I don't know if I'll add 5, but we have 2 currently, and I might add 1 or 2 if I can find savings in other places.
Okay, thank you.
Chief, those grapplers, are those typically on sergeant vehicles or regular patrol?
We've actually added them to our K-9 vehicles, and we've had a lot of success, early success with them.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
for those at home that might be intently watching, could you explain what a K-9 grappler is?
Mayor, Councilmember Turner. So a grappler is really a device that is equipped to the front of a police vehicle that has the ability to deploy and latch onto the axle of the vehicle that's in front of it, which would prevent a pursuit.
Okay, so it doesn't really, it's not about keeping the dogs under not about catching the dogs. That just happens to be the vehicles we're using to deploy.
Mayor, Councilmember Turner, that's correct. It's just a unique device that we can put on a vehicle, but it has nothing to do with canines.
Thank you. I was afraid we were going to hear from the ASPCA or somebody, so thank you.
Mayor?
Go ahead.
Chief Brandt, I've heard conversation about having operations go out of the main station and possible renovations in order to have officers out of there. Would you support something like that, or is that something that is a strategic plan for the future? Can you talk to me a little bit more about that possibility?
Mayor, Councilmember Conscious, I certainly support that plan. In fact, I would like to see patrol resources at some point in the very near future working out of the main station. We've got an opportunity with property and evidence building being built, also with our ID, so we'll have some space there. And so with that space that's created, I would love to explore that possibility.
Thank you. I'd love to explore that possibility as well. Thank you.
Mayor?
Go ahead.
I do have one more question for Chief Brandt. So I know you and I have had a discussion, and I believe you've had discussion with a few other people about, kind of getting serious. Maybe that's not the right, about traffic enforcement and speed. And, I think we all realize, and I've said this several times over the years, is most of us are not going to be the victim of a violent crime, but the most dangerous thing we do every day is get in our car and drive somewhere. It's really getting dangerous out there. So do you have the ability to focus resources on that within your existing budget? I know that's something that, I would really like to see. People used to be, when I was a kid growing up, everybody knew not to speed in Glendale. They had that, it's your town, slow down. And we really meant it in Glendale at the time, is that people just did not speed in Glendale. They knew you were going to get popped if you didn't follow the law in Glendale. So I would imagine, I would hope that there's a consensus that we do what we need to do to let drivers know that, you need to follow the law when you're driving in Glendale. But I'd just like to know that you're able to do that type of enforcement and, the necessary resources within your budget.
Mayor, Vice Mayor Tomachoff, the answer to that is yes. It is a priority for me. I know that it's a priority for each of you as well. And I do believe that there is more that we can do within our existing budget. In fact, we're moving that way now. I have a new opportunity to get in front of our patrol divisions, going around talking to all of our patrol officers. I am absolutely reinforcing that as a priority in this city for our police officers. I think they recognize that as well. And I've got a meeting planned in the very near future with the GOHS director to see if maybe there's some additional partnerships that we can make. So absolutely a priority for me.
Very good, thank you.
Mayor.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Chief, over here, but I'll also double up with that about the speed, but also with the excessive noise component as well. Speed's dangerous, but the excessive noise from the vehicles really robs people of their quality of life, especially in these few weeks where you can enjoy the evenings, hopefully quietly, but nowadays not so much. So if there's a way to include the noise component into that as well, that'd be great. And then I'm glad to hear that we're thinking about getting back to deploying resources out of the downtown station. I know several years ago we had a very effective bicycle patrol in our downtown that I thought made great progress on all kinds of issues, blight and gangs and theft and all kinds of stuff. And I believe it was very well received by the public. And I don't know if that's what you're thinking, but I'll plant that seed. Thank you.
Mayor?
Go ahead.
Yes, I will also say, I continue to have conversations with residents in the Cactus District. Just this past weekend, we talked about 45th Avenue, and I just want to emphasize for you, Chief Brent, and for the public, is that speed enforcement is extremely important. It's very dangerous in the Cactus District to walk and bike and to drive as well. So I look forward to any pilot programs that we can have in the future. Also putting more additional radar units in the police vehicles. Hopefully we can get some grant funding for that. And putting more motorcycle vehicles in hot spots, particularly in my district, but across Glendale. Thank you.
I'm just going to jump on because everybody else is. I'm going to do it different, though. You and I had a conversation a week ago in our meeting, and I'd brought up pretty much the same concern that everybody else is voicing, and I was impressed on how to the point you were as far as your plans. With that said, I told my wife that I was really happy because it sounded like this was something important to you as it was to us. And the next 2 evenings that my wife and I were driving in the city, I don't know why, but it seemed like we've seen probably 8 or 10 vehicles pulled over. And I'm thinking, wow, they're already doing it. So I don't know if that was just cool timing or what, but my wife is under the impression you're already doing everything that we talked about. But really excited. I thank our law enforcement, and I've heard, or you've heard me say this before, but I don't think we have a better law enforcement in the state other than Glendale PD. Our first responders, our fire, the police department, I think are second to none. So I'm real proud of all you guys and all your guys.
Thank you, Mayor.
I think there's a consensus on that. Mayor, I absolutely agree.
All right, next.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chief. Next is the Transportation Department. They have an annual budget of $43.1 million, and they have 118.75 FTEs. The Transportation Department ensures safe and efficient travel across all modes of transportation, promoting economic development through strategic planning, design, and maintenance of Glendale's infrastructure, while also working to minimize pollutant air emissions. The first request for transportation is for $10,000 for the right-of-way maintenance at Camelback Ranch, and this will cover the contract increases for landscaping and weed abatement. Next is a request for $526,000 for parking lot preservation. This one-time funding is for pavement repairs and upgrades, including slurry seal, crack sealing, and restriping at the arena and media center parking lots. Next is $325,000 for the Phoenix Police Traffic Control. Oh no, sorry, $32,500 for the Phoenix Police Traffic Control at Camelback Ranch to cover the spring training traffic control costs due to increased attendance. Next is a right-of-way landscape maintenance plan request of $67,572. This is a multi-year council-approved plan for ongoing landscape upkeep in the city's right-of-ways. $10,000 is being requested for the Alive at 25 program for materials and instructor certification to support expanded participating, now serving 9 schools and 2,500 students. Next is a request for, looks like for $587,000 and $200, and this is for the contract increase for the fixed route contract. The next one is for the next two for the $640,000 and the $7,900 are for the regional ADA services and the professional development required in the transit service agreement with Valley Metro. The supplemental requests on this slide are being requested in the Highway User Revenue Fund. The additional of a lead traffic signal technician will help manage traffic signal maintenance as Glendale's signal infrastructure continues to expand, including 7 new intersections next year. And then the $22,285 is being requested for a sign applicator table. A new table will provide staff with a safer, more efficient way of applying sign sheeting to aluminum. Then we have $6,000 for the increase in traffic signal electricity to cover the increased SRP electricity costs and power needs for 5 new intersections. And $11,000 is requested for the cost of uniforms and PPE for staff with improved safety enhancements. And then the last request is $300,000 to replace outdated overhead signs on Northern Parkway and welcome to Glendale signs across the city.
Mayor.
Go ahead.
You said across the city, so can you talk a little bit more about that?
For that, Mayor and Council, we'll turn that question over to our Interim Director of Transportation, Parab Adavala.
Mayor and Council, under this, we have 2 different activities that we are doing. One is we are replacing the big signs that you have on Northern Parkway. We cannot produce those signs in-house, so those will be contracted out. The other component is the Welcome to Glendale signs. We have a new logo and a lot of our signs that are on streets that are at the boundary of the city when folks are entering the city. Those have the old logo and they're also outdated, so we just are going to replace those signs.
Thank you. Council, Mayor and Council, I don't support $300,000 for Welcome to Glendale signs. I don't think it's a good use of our money. I think it could go into better community programs. And so I just wanted to voice my opposition towards this supplemental request. Thank you.
Mayor and Council, just as a reminder, this is the HER fund. HER funds are restricted and can only be used for certain expenditures. And so just want to remind everyone about that restriction on the use of these funds.
Can you explain what her funds are for the public?
Mayor, Councilmember Conchas, highway user revenue funds are funds that are generated off of fuel tax, other taxes, and had restricted use based on state statute.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor? Thank you, Mayor. I guess sticking with the sign replacement. So the Northern Parkway signs are basically, they're like the same signs you would find on the freeways, right? So those are produced by, I don't know who, but we don't make those kind of signs where they have exit ramps essentially off the Northern Parkway. So that's probably why it's that expensive.
Mayor and Council, that is correct.
Okay.
The Welcome to Glendale signs would be a small portion of the overall $300,000 supplemental. The
Okay.
biggest portion of that expense would be the Northern Parkway signs.
All right, and then I don't recall, is there a Welcome to Glendale sign at the Loop 101? And I know that's under construction right now, but at the conclusion of the widening project, will we be putting a sign there at 51st Avenue where you leave Phoenix and enter Glendale? Will we be putting a new sign there?
So Mayor and Council, if I can ask for a clarification, because the signs that we are talking go on arterial streets where a motorist driving into Glendale would see the sign. I'm not sure if.
I thought you were going to put one on the 303 out there for so those are two different things then.
Mayor and Council, I can follow up on that. I believe the signs on the freeway speak for which exits are, like the next 3 exits would be Glendale kind of stuff. There wouldn't be a welcome to City of Glendale sign on the freeway, but I can follow up with that information.
Okay, very good, thank you. Mayor, I do have a couple other questions. On the first slide, under parking lot pavement preservation, what parking lots are going to be addressed this budget cycle?
Mayor and Council, what is called the yellow lot, which is at the southwest corner of 91st and Maryland, that is going to be treated this year. In addition, what is called Lot G, which is basically the lot that's east of the arena, that's going to receive a crack seal this year. And what you see in the supplemental here is the surface treatment after the crack seal is done this year, but next year to do the slurry treatment. And then what we call the media center parking lot, basically all around the media center and also the garage, parking garage, that would be crack sealed. And some portions will be redone, reconstructed, and then the entire parking lot will be slurry sealed. That will be part of that $526,000 that we are requesting for FY26.
Okay, so if I understood you, the yellow parking lot basically is going to be resurfaced and restriped?
This year, that's correct.
Okay, and then the media center, are you referring to there's the small parking strip basically in front of the media center, and then there's that parking lot that's adjacent to the media center that used to be a valet parking lot, and I know that parking lot, part of that, is that going to be part of this as well?
Mayor and Council, that is correct. So the parking lot, what Vice Mayor referred as media center, actually wraps around the building, and in addition also wraps around the parking around and north of the parking garage, and also the 2 lots that are east of the media center building. All of those are part of this.
Very good, thank you. And then lastly, the right-of-way landscape maintenance plan budget's being increased by the $67,792, is that correct?
Mayor and Council, that is correct. So the plan that was presented to Council 2 budget years ago was for a 7-year plan. And the plan had a capital component of it and then an ongoing maintenance because of the additional capital spending. So this is the 3rd year's worth of maintenance that would be coming out of those projects that we are doing.
Very good. So I have one more question. So does this does it include the O&M of the renovated right-of-ways? Like, for example, or, at least, I don't know if anybody else, but in my district, 67th Avenue, I know the trees when they redid the medians, they thought the trees were stressed, that by updating the irrigation, we might be able to save the pine trees. That didn't happen. The trees are all dead now. So this would include, because I know that's big tree removal is very expensive. So is that, I know that I've talked to Mr. Mehta, and that's going to be happening this summer, that those trees are going to be removed, but is that part of this budget?
Mayor and Council, that is correct. The additional maintenance that would be created because of the projects that we are doing would be part of this.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Mayor?
Go ahead.
Mayor, Council, and staff, I would like to request that we review as a council the right-of-way landscape maintenance plan, because you said we're in year 3 of 7, is that correct?
Mayor and Council, that is correct.
Thank you. And of course, when I drive around the city in my district compared to other districts, I know that my district needs a lot of work when it comes to right-of-way landscaping, so it's very important to me. So that's why I would like the council to potentially look at that plan in a workshop meeting, just so that we can understand what has happened and what's being planned for the future. Thank you.
Mayor, thank you.
Go ahead.
On page 261, Camelback Branch right-of-way maintenance, ongoing 10,000. That's an addition to what we're already allocating there?
Mayor and council, that is correct. The city has a property owner there, has an obligation to maintain the right-of-way adjacent to the Camelback Ranch facility. And this is a increase in cost that we have seen that is shared between the city of Glendale and the facility. So this is half of the cost increase that the city of Glendale is responsible for.
Okay, thank you. So is this actually Camelback, Ballpark Boulevard right-of-way, or is it something?
It is the east side of Ballpark Boulevard that is adjacent to the ranch facility.
So it's the east side of Ballpark Boulevard, okay. And then, well, the way I drive it, I guess it depends on which direction you're driving, but Ballpark Boulevard begins in Glendale and ends in Phoenix.
Mayor,
How do we divide, or do we divide the maintenance cost on Ballpark Boulevard?
Mayor and council, Ballpark Boulevard, that is north and east of what would be the Bethany Home Outfall Channel or Bethany Home Alignment, that is 100% City of Glendale responsibility. South of the Bethany Home Outfall Channel is in the City of Phoenix. At that point, the City of Glendale is only responsible for the right-of-way that is along the frontage of the property, which is why we would be responsible along the east side that is adjacent to the Camelback Ranch facility.
Okay. Do they actually handle the work down there, or do they reimburse us for all of it? Because the landscaping always looks nice and uniform all the way through there.
Mayor and council, so the facility does the maintenance, and they invoice us once a year for the city's share of the cost.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. No further questions. We'll move on to the Water Services Department. The Water Services Department has an annual budget of $87 million, and they have 218 FTEs. The Water Services Department ensures reliable and sustainable services to the community, including water delivery, efficient wastewater treatment, stormwater management, and environmental programs. Water Services is requesting 4 new FTEs. The first request is for a CIP and engineering project manager. This new position will oversee water infrastructure projects, ensuring timely project delivery while supporting senior engineering staff. Next is an additional water utility locator is needed to handle increased utility marker demands and ensure timely, accurate markings for evacuation procedure projects. Excavation. Thank you. A water conservative specialist is being requested to replace 2 temporary staff with 1 full-time specialist to manage water conservation programs and rebate processing amid growing demand. And then the last FTE request is for a senior water plant operator. This is requested to meet increased demands at the expanded Pyramid Peak water treatment plant and ensure regulatory compliance. And Water is requesting an increase to overtime pay of $118,000 to account for rising pay rates for 24/7 coverage and after-hours work. And $18,000 is being requested for increased building maintenance costs due to rising service rates and repair costs. Then we've got $740,000 is being requested for increase to chemical costs to cover higher chemical usage and price hikes for water treatment and odor control. Next is $250,000 is being requested for equipment maintenance to cover the rising costs of in-house, third-party, and service agreement maintenance for equipment and landscaping. Then there's a request for $390,000 will cover inflationary increases for miscellaneous supplies that are critical to daily department operations. And then $1.3 million is being requested to cover their higher rates for raw water from central Arizona Project, and Salt River Project. Next, we have $117,000 being requested to increase temporary pay to cover rising workloads and evaluate the need for permanent staff for new processes. $33,000 is being requested to cover rising apparel costs, including PPE for staff at water plants. And the next supplemental for SCADA software and services for $240,000 covers software cost increases and after-hour repairs for system malfunctions. And the next supplementals are for the sewer fund. Water is requesting an increase to overtime pay of about $14,000 to account for the rising pay rates. And then $30,000 is being requested for increased building maintenance costs. Then we have $100,000 requested for increase to chemical cost. And then $900,000 is being requested to cover Glendale's 6.8% share of rising operation and maintenance costs at the 91st Avenue wastewater treatment plant. Water is requesting $62,000 for equipment maintenance to cover the rising costs of in-house third-party and service agreement maintenance. Then we have a request of $95,000 to cover the increases for miscellaneous supplies that are critical to daily department operations. And then the last request is $17,000 to cover apparel and PPE for staff. Any questions on water or supplementals? Okay, this slide shows we'll be meeting again in 3 weeks on April 22nd, and that's where we combine our 3 workshops and present the final workshop. And just before we go, if I can get just a summary of the 3 items that council had consensus on. We have the $250,000 for the 250 party. We also have $2,500 for the circles.
Time out.
Mayor, may we clarify, because I heard during the consensus discussion 250,000, which I think that's what the council wanted, but then I think I heard, Mayor, that you said 200,000 when you were asking for consensus. Can you clarify? Can we clarify?
He's correct.
250.
So 250?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. That's all I need to know.
All right, thank you. So, and then $2,500 for the Circle of Cities, and then it looks like we got consensus for the $20,000 for the Manistee Ranch House. Miss anything? Okay.
Mayor?
Go ahead.
Based on this projected budget with those relatively minor adjustments, what are we projecting to have as a fund balance?
Mayor, members of the council, we'll have to get back to you on that. I mean, when we do the budget balancing, we start with what we had in the forecast, then we update what the revenues are looking like, then we add in all the supplementals as they're sort of, after they've been reviewed by council. We have too many changes right now for me to tell you what that looks like on the fly. So we'll bring that back to you for the April 22nd meeting. If you need it sooner and I have it sooner, I can try to get it to you, but there's just no way with, I know those seem like minor changes, but there are other changes happening as well with many other things, so it's a little too soon. I do know that even with the changes, we'll be able to meet our fund balance policy because we had enough wiggle room in there to be able to do that. But we're going to need to update everything before I can answer that question.
And I realize our fund balance policy is based on how big our budget is, so it's a moving number. But do you recall what our fund balance policy required us to have for this fiscal year?
Mayor, members of the council, it's in the neighborhood of $90 million. I want to say it's 89 and change, but again, I don't know that number that well off the top of my head, but I think that's about what it is.
And just as a ballpark, there won't be there's not going to be a $10 million swing, do you think, with that? Or?
Mayor, members of the council, I don't believe so, but again, we're monitoring revenues pretty closely, so we'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay. And with that in mind, and I'm trying to be, I don't mean to try to pin you down too tightly, I'm just trying to get a ballpark number. But with that in mind, I'd like to remind my fellow council members that several years ago, during a time when money was extremely tight, and we didn't have a fund balance like that. $2 million was borrowed out of the arts fund for the city. And I think that now's the time for us to pay restitution and to move that money back. So I'd like to see if today we have a consensus on allocating $2 million back into the arts fund.
Before I ask for consensus, I'd like to see what she comes up with as far as where we're at. I don't know if we need a consensus today for that, but I think you're right. I think we need to look at it. I'd like to see what the balance is, see if we could afford to do that. Maybe we can make that decision in 2 weeks.
Okay.
So,
I'm fine. I agree with that, Mayor.
are you okay with that?
Yep, as long as, I saw some nodding heads as well, so what I'm getting, the feedback I'm seeing and hearing is that if we're in that ballpark, then yes, it's doable. Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes.
if I could. Ms. Rios, because we've got 2 new council members, would you mind telling them what our fund balance policy is?
Mayor, members of the council, the fund balance policy basically says how much council would like to keep in reserves. And it is 25% of the following years or the upcoming budget year's ongoing expenses.
All right. What else you got?
That's all I have for today, unless you guys have any additional
Mr. Phelps?
questions.
Nothing?
Mayor, sorry, can I clarify? That's for the general fund. Other funds do have their own fund balance policy, but the information I gave you is specific to the general fund.
You read my mind, that's what I was interested in, thank you.
Okay. Well, we're good. Thanks for being here. No further business before this council. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.